an hour and a half, 90 minutes or so since this news broke.
By the way, we mentioned Ted Cruz, and the reason his insight on this is actually quite important is because as a senator, he is on the Commerce Committee, which oversees transportation, chair of the Commerce Committee, which covers transportation. So, he would be one of the ones getting a briefing. Again, we heard from Senator Jerry Moran of Kansas, Congressman Don Beyer, who represents Northern Virginia, also getting some of that information coming in. But if you know anybody who is heading into D.C., I would imagine this is not just going to impact our traffic tonight, but at this point, what it could do tomorrow for travel coming in and out of Reagan National Airport. We have crews all over the scene tonight. Again, we're working different angles here just because all of this information is coming in, and we're trying to sort through all of it and get through a lot of the noise. But a lot of the things that were suspected throughout the night have so far checked out. Again, military helicopter, which the initial reports had said it was a D.C. police helicopter. It is not. Military helicopter, passenger flight. Those planes, the CRJ-700s, generally can seat about 70 people. So that seems to be the top of the line number that we're looking at least right now. But we don't have confirmation how many people were on board.
And we also know that American Airlines, they have come out and said that they are aware of a crash and one of their planes being involved, but they've been very vague at this point, only to say that they will provide more information as they get it. So
I'll tell you what we'll do right now. As we are waiting to get more information, I think what helps is getting insight on what goes on with these in these sort of situations. Let's bring in Richard Levy. He is an aviation expert. He's joining us right now on Zoom. Richard, first of all, let's talk about situations like this, which is something, thankfully, is so rare in American aviation. However, when it happens, it is shocking and it is stunning.
It really is. Good evening to you on our thoughts and with the passengers in this situation. The military helicopter was on approach to runway 33 at Washington Reagan National. The commuter airplane, the PSA aircraft, and I'm being very clear, I'm making an assumption, I do not have the facts yet, was most likely cleared for an approach to runway 01, and I don't have that as a fact. And so where the midair collision occurred over the Potomac, did one airplane make a mistake about identifying the runway? We don't know that yet. Obviously, there was a midair collision, and the aircraft are most likely in the Potomac River, as you all have been reporting. So that is going to lead us to the air traffic control tapes that will be focused on the approach controller. That's the radar controller for the approaches into Washington Reagan, and the tower controller. What approach were the helicopter, the military helicopter, and the PSA Bombardier 700, CRJ-700, cleared for to fly, and what runways did the tower clear the airplanes to land on? Of course, they would not clear them to land on the same runway. We know that. So was there a mistake made on identifying the runway? Did the one of the aircraft, and I'm calling the helicopter, of course, an aircraft also, was that one of the two aircraft not correctly lined up with the runway that created the collision? And I'd like to clarify one point, though. The PSA airplane is a regional airline and operated on behalf of American Airlines, but the flight crew training, the maintenance, the procedures of PSA are purely owned by and operated by PSA. They are not trained at American Airlines. So I wanted to make that very clear. This is very usual. Regardless of the major airline, Delta, United, and American, they have regional airlines, as we all know, that feed them and on thinner routes. And this is an example one from Wichita up to Washington Reagan.
Captain Levy, so you've spent decades in the skies. And I know we've had a number of various across the country so-called close calls.
Right.
And you know, there is a certain belief that people know when you get on an airplane, you're putting your life in the hands of a captain, but you also know that we have a rigorous system of training and a rigorous system of safety protocol. We just mentioned the last time we saw a major incident at Reagan National was back in 1982 when Air Florida Flight 90 went down.
Right.
It's been some time that we've talked about something like this in our nation.
It has been, and that is correct. And this is going to point at, as I mentioned, a midair collision on what we say sharp final, that is close to the airport, just before landing. Who was cleared for what, and which airplane was in the right position, aircraft, I should say, the helicopter, the PSA, which was in the wrong position at the wrong time. That is a big mystery. Obviously, you have a different speed of the Bombardier 700 jet versus the military aircraft, the military helicopter, I'm sorry, which is going to be flying at 30, 40 knots. The regional aircraft will be flying at, my guess, 120 knots. We use knots in aviation. That's about 140 miles per hour. So you have a huge difference in speeds. That brings the question to mind again. If one aircraft, the PSA was on final approach to land on 01, that is up the Potomac River, basically, and then the military helicopter on 33. Where did the midair collision occur, and where was the mistake made? You'll get the voice recorder and the cockpit voice recorder off of the PSA aircraft. It'll be recovered, and they'll play that back. And of course, the air traffic control tapes are already, they're always recorded. So I think we're going to put this thing together very fast. I'm not saying tonight or tomorrow, but rapidly. You have a lot of evidence coming out.
Yeah, and in your experience, Captain, because considering the time of night, and I believe the FAA, when they put their statement out, they said how the plane was cleared to, or was arriving and landing on runway 33, which that could be any runway. I don't know the layout of the ground there, but considering the fact that it seemed like a good day, we did have a lot of high wind out there, but overall, a clear night to be out there in the skies. Visibility and issues, I mean, I know it's all preliminary right now, but in your experience, the possibility of something like this happening, choosing the wrong runway after being cleared for a certain one, I mean, what are the chances that that can happen, and what could be the factors involved? Yeah,
Mistaken identification. We have electronic equipment on the aircraft, for example, for runway 01, that allows you to land in very low visibility. It's called the Instrument Landing System. On runway 33, I haven't flown into Washington, Reagan. I flew internationally before I retired. In any event, it either has an ILS, which is very accurate, or an approach, to keep it simple for your listeners or viewers, that is based on GPS, global proximity systems. But so there should have been adequate spacing, and there would have been. And why there wasn't, that's going to be a matter of question. But you do raise a very, very good point. Regional airlines, larger, the 747s, 777s, Airbus, 737s, etc., and this regional airplane, they have TCAS, traffic avoidance system, and it picks up an imminent collision, and you get an alert through the speakers on the in the aircraft. It says traffic, so you're seeing the other aircraft, even a helicopter, and then if a collision is imminent, now I'm not saying the next second, in about 20 seconds, it'll say climb, or of course not descend, you're very close to the ground, or so that's going to be a question. The TCAS is TCAS. TCAS, did the military aircraft, I flew military, but a military transport, and so I don't know if the military helicopter had the TCAS. That's a big question. Why didn't it go off and alert one of the crews? Go ahead.
Captain Levy, I want to ask you one more question, then we have to go. When you're flying into D.C. airspace, I mean, you have low-flying helicopters. You have the question of, are they lit up? Are they visible? Is there much communication between military pilots and commercial pilots?
Often military, for the obvious occurrence of situation with the White House right there, most of the communications are on the same frequency we call VHF. Military can use UHF, ultra high frequency, but normally around Washington Reagan, everybody's going to be on the same frequency, and that brings up a good question. I'm hearing a helicopter cleared for an approach on near the same runway I'm on. That would make me be very concerned.
All right. That is Captain Richard Levy, airline expert, joining us here on Fox 5. Sir, thank you very much for your insight, unfortunately, under these circumstances. I'm going to go to Shamari Stone, who is now out and about as we continue to cover this from every possible angle. Show, you're at Gravelly Point now. Talk about what you've seen trying to get there.
Well, I've seen a multi-agency response when you have fire, EMS, you have U.S. Park Police, everyone converging on Reagan National Airport. Many people have been coming out here trying to get to the airport, and they've been stopping by this area. As you look right over here by Gravelly Point, you can see all the vehicles, people outside of their cars. They planned on coming to the airport when you had flights that were supposed to land and they were going to pick up their loved ones. Well, right now they are just waiting here, and across the George Washington Parkway, right over there, you can see the flashing lights, and that is where you have the multi-agency search and rescue operation underway in the Potomac River. After this small American Airlines flight 5342 from Wichita collided with an Army helicopter near the Reagan National Airport, you also have U.S. Park Police who have closed down Gravelly Point, and I'm going to pause for a second so you can see this is what people are seeing as emergency crews come by George Washington Parkway. Take a listen. So that is exactly what people are seeing as they drive here to the airport. Folks are stopping as well with their cell phones trying to capture all of this. And basically, the U.S. Park Police officer told me that Gravelly Point is closed. But as you can see through all this activity out here, emergency crews traveling right now fast to the airport, as you can see. Jim?
Shamari, thank you. And you can see, I think in situations like this, as you point to the people who are out there, and we have seen members of the media attending to the scene out, I'm sure there is a good amount of speculation. People want to see what's going on. As Shamari just mentioned, Gravelly Point shut down, so don't leave, don't bother heading out there. Don't bother hitting the GW Parkway, because as you can see, that scene has just gotten bigger and bigger. We're now nearing about an hour since we hit the air. The reports came in just around 9 o'clock tonight, and the latest information is a military helicopter hitting that Bombardier CRJ 700 regional jet. Those generally have a capacity of about 70 people. It happened as the plane was just about to land, heading from Wichita to Reagan National just shortly before 9 o'clock tonight. So that's what we know. And again, we're still waiting, because we should get a briefing in just a little bit on this.
Yeah, we have DC Fire, EMS, MPD, Fairfax County, you name it, they're out there. Several agencies all working together on this colossal rescue operation. We also know that Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy says that he is at FAA headquarters right now. He's at the headquarters. He is monitoring the situation. He was confirmed, you know, just Tuesday.
Just sworn in yesterday.
Yeah, just yesterday. He was sworn in today. And so first day on the job. And quite the tall order here. But yes, he is at headquarters right now. And we also know that in addition to him, the president, also the Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, says that she's been debriefed as well. And Pete Hegseth also has said that they are there, ready to assist, ready to help in any way that they can.
All right. So at this hour, again, as we wait to get more information on what happened, we do not have any confirmation on how many people were on board that plane. As mentioned, those rescue boats, at least from where Nana was at Gravelly Point, they were in and they were out very quickly. They relocated. But there's the information we're getting from the FAA. It was a Sikorsky H-60 helicopter while on approach to runway 33. And when you look at the flight plan out there, and when we just talked with Captain Richard Levy, who of Aviation Expert Consulting, the question is, was it on course? Was it slightly off course? But it stayed within the corridor of the Potomac. It wasn't as though there was a big misstep there. I'm going to ask once again if we can see our main screen here in studio, because it's a bit obscured from where we're sitting here at the anchor desk. But as you look at the vantage point there, we were talking before. There's the collision, but from the other vantage point, just to speak to the volume of planes that come in and out, you saw another plane right there on top, just taking off at that moment, well above. I mean, that was nowhere near the crash site, maybe vertically, but certainly not within close proximity.
You also noticed the different speeds, which the captain mentioned that to us. And it's hard at this point to tell which aircraft perhaps maybe chose or missed the right runway.
Right.
And like he said, I was surprised to hear from him that he thinks it won't take long for them to to be able to really put a finger on perhaps where that miscommunication or where the misjudgment happened once they're able not only to get the black box but the cockpit, voice recorders to find out what kind of chatter and what was going on. And like you said, I was surprised to hear from him that
inside,
he thinks it won't
they're
take
going to do
long
that
for
briefing
them
inside a little bit later, but we want to go see our Fox now inside the airport terminal. And as mentioned, they stopped the flights going in and out, and Sierra, it is empty behind you at this hour.
Cockpit, voice recorders to find out what kind of chatter, what was going on. And like
ominous, Bill. I mean, look, it's completely empty. There's no one behind the computers there, no one waiting in line, no one grabbing their luggage or anything. It is completely empty. I can even hear myself have an echo in here because there's barely anyone. We've seen the occasional law enforcement agencies running back and forth. Obviously, there is a sense of urgency due to that mid-air collision that happened around 9 p.m. And if you look at the boards over here, soon it will change. But right now it says emergency alert. Due to an emergency situation, all flights are being held on the airfield. Additional information will be available as received for customers on departing flights. Please check with your airline representative. But it's definitely such a scary feel in here. We have seen a few people waiting and walking around like this gentleman right here. But I do want to introduce you to Debbie here, who I was just speaking with. And when I told you what happened, what went through your head?
I am completely in shock about this. I mean, this is horrible. I'm at the airport, and these people apparently crashed with a Black Hawk, and there's 60 people on board the plane, and they're in the Potomac, and they're going now with emergency crew to find out what the circumstances are. They don't know if there's casualties or what's happening, but of course it's upsetting.
Absolutely. And what flight are you waiting for? Or did you just land? What's your situation here?
I'm here early. I'm going to Midway Airport tomorrow, Chicago, for doctor's appointments. And I wound up checking out of my hotel early, and I'm leaving very, very early in the morning. I have a tendency to sleep late, so I didn't want to miss my flight. But I can't believe that this is happening. The whole airport is shut down. Is that correct?
Yes, no flights are leaving or coming in. And now, what's your plan with all of this going on?
I don't know. I absolutely don't know. I don't know if the flights are delayed and they'll be rescheduled for later tomorrow, or what they're going to wind up doing. I have no idea.
And now, how often do you fly?
Well, I've had my cardiology team is in Chicago, and I've been back and forth to Chicago on a monthly basis, flying with Southwest successfully. They do a wonderful job. I really like the airline, and that's what I was planning on doing very early tomorrow morning, and now I just don't know.
And obviously, right now, we don't know, how many survivors there may or may not be. But just, what goes through your head knowing that, there's family members out there wondering what's happening?
उसके बाद मैं एनडीटीवी करूंगा, उसको रिकॉर्ड कर लेना बाद में. चलो चलिए कर. 1 2 3 चेक. Breaking news from Washington, D.C. What a terrible tragedy. As you were seeing, I am live from Washington, D.C., and this is, a passenger jet that is an American Airlines flight coming from Kansas, Wichita in Kansas. That has crashed. There has been a mid-air collision with a U.S. military helicopter. This is what we know so far. I can tell you this is just ahead of Washington, D.C.'s Reagan National Airport, which is DC's primary airport for domestic flight, not far away from all the, the VVIP installations which are there. And as you know, that Washington, D.C., it's a restricted airspace here in some ways. It remains to be seen how did this happen, but this is a terrible tragedy here tonight. And I can tell you personally, I was, I landed at the same airport yesterday night. I often take flights from DCA. I am very close to the Potomac River. It's really chilly here at the night, and rescue efforts are on. As I speak to you, with the police, the fire brigade, and all the rescue workers are trying, to rescue the passengers. The incident happened at 8:53 p.m. in the night here, which is Eastern U.S. time, Washington, D.C. time. And we do know from sources in the White House, President Trump has been informed, and this is a terrible tragedy for the U.S. today. And we don't know the flight manifest as yet, but this is confirmed. This was the American Eagle, which is a CRJ 700, a smaller aircraft, but has at least 60 passengers. We don't know how many passengers were on board that flight, but it seemed that some of the passengers seem to have been rescued, because there are reports coming in that some of them have been taken out from the freezing waters of the Potomac River that you see on the screen right now here. For those of you joining me here, this is we are reporting live from Washington, D.C. This is Saurabh Shukla here for News Mobile, and it is a terrible tragedy of sorts. Aircraft was coming to land, and that's a flight path. Usually, when the aircraft land, they go over the Potomac River, which is the primary river in which Washington, D.C. is situated, and then gets to Ronald Reagan Airport, which is actually situated in Virginia across the river. But this is in Washington, D.C. We do know so far that this was a Black Hawk, a helicopter, a chopper. We don't know a helicopter, but this has been a terrible tragedy. This is what we know so far. Also, want to tell you that this was all the flights here at the Ronald Reagan National Airport here in Washington, D.C. have been grounded. People who are on the flights have been told to, stay put. There is an emergency alert on. But this is what we can confirm to you at this moment, that a passenger jet coming from Kansas that has crashed at the aircraft, which was a Black Hawk aircraft, while the flight was approaching Reagan National Airport. Do follow these mobiles continuing coverage, and do stay tuned and make sure that you only follow the authentic coverage, which is coverage based on facts and truth, because there's a lot of misinformation also doing the rounds. But we do know that these facts, as I told you, has been also confirmed by the mid-air collision between a passenger jet of American Airlines, which is American Eagle, operated by PSA Air, coming from Kansas, bound for Washington, D.C. And this aircraft was about to touch down, and that is just before touchdown, it collided with a Black Hawk, the helicopter. There are believed to be some survivors, and sources telling me that some of them have been rescued. We don't know how many. It will not be wise to speculate anything, but this is a day of a terrible late of how and why this happened, who was at fault. But this is the breaking news coming here from Washington, D.C. I'm Saurabh Shukla, live here for News Mobile from Washington, D.C. Over to our continuing coverage and courtesy of some of the U.S. network to take you right down on the spot from where the rescue operation is underway in the Potomac River, and it's freezing temperature here. Try to rescue as many people as they can, but with the night, it is a difficult task.
WMATA is going to run extra Silver Line trains. They're going to keep the Silver Line open to get people in from the Dulles area as well. You know, trying to facilitate people who might be stranded tonight. They're also sending buses down to warm up a lot of those first responders because, as mentioned, you know, the air is 46 degrees at this hour, but we're still dealing with some very cold water situations as those first responders tend to the rescue efforts.
Yeah, and let's see here. We don't have a timetable as far as this is all inbound flights being held at their origin until 5 a.m. But we think that it's probably going to go longer than that.
Obviously,
we can't say. But right now, you just have to stay on top of it. But in the meantime, some people will stay there at the airport, and others will still need to try to find a way out. And as you can imagine, with the situation like this, and with so many people and so many different groups there responding, and it's going to be like this all night, getting in and out of it there's just no complete guarantee what time that can happen for you or your loved one. So, but we do have Sierra Fox in there. She's in the terminal, and so that'll be good. She can keep us posted on any new developments, and we can bring that information to you too, because we know there's still a lot of questions.
Plenty of them at this hour. Not just questions that we're asking, but questions that people who are flying or people who have loved ones in the skies. People certainly try to keep tabs on. Just take a quick breather here because again, this is a catastrophic situation that's unfolded in our backyard, and our neighbors and our friends and maybe family are either helping assist the situation. We certainly hope that you're not directly impacted by it, but if you are, we're going to do what we can to bring you the most responsible information on this, because this is about as stunning to those of us as it is to you.
And the live pictures, these are both live from what I believe. I know we've been showing you a bunch of different cameras, but everything you're seeing on the camera right now is just two different vantage points of this huge response, this enormous response. All of our local agencies working together, very heavily concentrated here in this one area. First, they were at Gravelly Point, as we saw about an hour ago, before then abruptly just picking up and taking off. And I hear we are going to Mike now. Mike, are you standing by? Mike.
Guys, this is terrible. I mean, absolutely awful. And all we can do is hope at this point, right? That we get some news on some survivors. Of course, rescue crews for sure doing their best. Obviously, I'm not an aircraft expert. What I am is a weather expert. And I can give you sort of the weather around the time that this crash happened in Washington. Winds were pretty standard. They were a little gusty. Out of the west-northwest, 15 to 20, maximum gusts, 26 miles per hour, right around 9 o'clock in the evening. Visibility was fine. 10 Mile, perfectly clear in all directions, and clear skies reported as well. No cloud cover in the region. So weather probably not going to be a factor. Unfortunately, likely a factor once the plane made contact with the water. Air temperature, D.C. right now, 47 degrees. Unfortunately, that's not the case with the water temperature. Water temperatures in the bay are in the 30s, and we do actually have a buoy not too far from Reagan National Airport, located just about here, which is reading water temperatures of about 35.4 degrees. Unfortunately, if you look at data from the National Weather Service, they say that you can be in water for about 10 to 15 minutes before you start to lose consciousness when water temperatures is that cold, and survival rates after an hour go down pretty fast if they're left in the water. So that's why the response was so key, getting boats in the water as soon as possible to see if they could get anyone they were able to find out of the water. This is Reagan National Airport, of course, right here. That camera shot we've been showing you with the video that streamed the crash there. That camera is located just off to the north and to the west of the Lincoln Memorial. So that camera angle is kind of looking down. It doesn't look directly at the airport. It kind of follows the river down. The flight track was coming in, of course, towards Reagan National Airport. If I go in really closely, I went through the airport map to figure out which airplane. They confirmed that it was trying to land on runway 33, the runway 33 approach, as we show you that video I'm talking about. I'll go back one map real quick here and show you. That's the angle. The camera's kind of looking in that direction, and it zoomed in on this area as that crash happened. So again, that plane, what they have confirmed, it was taking the runway 33 approach, which is this shorter runway right there, because it's not one of the major commuter aircrafts. Again, as Jim mentioned, one of those sort of regional airlines that carries anywhere between 65 to 75 people if it's completely full. Again, we don't have final numbers into the room just yet. Again, guys, the best I can do is tell you that weather probably not a factor in this. I think I would have to bow to the aircraft expert from earlier who mentioned probably going to be some sort of communication issues, but of course we'll await on any official word as I send it back into you at the news desk there.
Mike, thank you. Looking at some news from the Associated Press as they continue to track this just as we are. They are citing audio from the air traffic control tower around the time of the crash. A controller heard asking the helicopter, PAT-25, do you have the CRJ in sight? Referring to the passenger aircraft. Tower, did you see that? Another pilot is heard calling seconds after the apparent collision. And then at that point, the tower started diverting other aircraft away from Reagan National Airport. As mentioned, all inbound flights are being held now to at least 5 a.m., which means at this hour, and what I want to do is just as we, I'm going to try to take a look and see where some of these planes are coming in from, because there aren't many at this hour, but there are still some. Coast Guard is now being deployed. Every available resource being deployed by way of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, to respond to this plane crash. So this is the first test of a very new and very nascent administration. But unfortunately, we have been through these situations before. It's just that we haven't had one of these to contend with in a long time. As mentioned before, Kenneth pointed this out. It is a very crowded airspace, and this has been something that has been the bone of contention for many lawmakers. If you recall, fairly recently, it was cleared. Congress cleared the addition of more flights. Now, we can tell you that it's very unlikely that there's a direct correlation, but when there were the concerns about the additional air traffic moving in through that area, that was something that certainly came up in situations like this, where you have military activity very close. You have military aircraft flying through, working with government officials. We are told, again, the helicopter involved, that Black Hawk, had 3 soldiers on board. Reports are out that there were no VIPs on board that, as there often can be.
Yeah. And this is just in also, we know that Maryland Governor Wes Moore, he has put out on X that the Department of Emergency Management in Maryland, which of course is part of the DMV here, has raised its Emergency Operations Center to enhanced status in support of this. He's closely monitoring updates and says that the state of Maryland, local authorities, they are all engaged in this response. Obviously, we see a big presence from DC emergency responders, and we saw Northern Virginia there as well.
And we saw that early on with Fairfax County getting involved in the process as well, but they've been deployed. I mean, it's a very fluid situation at this hour. But again, we are following this. DCA, again, closed until at least 5 a.m. tomorrow. You are watching continuous live coverage of a tragedy in the skies over Washington, D.C. and Northern Virginia. It is 11 o'clock. You're watching Fox 5. Jim Loke alongside Angie Goff and Kenneth Moten as we track this breaking news. And for those of you just tuning in at this hour, we can confirm American Airlines Flight 5342 with nonstop service from Wichita to Reagan National Airport collided with a military helicopter upon landing just before 9 o'clock this evening. The collision happening in the Potomac. The reaction, the response was swift, but at this hour, unfortunately, we cannot tell you if anybody survived the crash. We don't have any idea how many people were on board that plane. However, those planes are generally configured to carry about 70 people. This is video from EarthCam that we've been showing you all evening long, the moment of impact, and you can see it right there, right at the center of your screen there, as another plane takes off right above it.
Yeah, so there you go. Not the one on the right, but down towards the middle of your screen.
Yeah.
There you go. You can see it right there. Also, we mentioned that President Trump was briefed on the situation, and he has now since released a statement about what he says, quote, is a terrible accident that just took place at Reagan National Airport. May God bless their souls, he said in the statement. And he thanked first responders. He also said that he's going to provide more details as they arise. So we do know, in addition to this being a Black Hawk helicopter, Army officials say that 3 people were aboard that chopper, but the official could not confirm their status as of yet.
Just checking in terms of the planes that are being halted. The terminals are open. The flights coming in have been halted. They're coming in from places like New York, Boston, Atlanta, Orlando, St. Louis, Houston, Chicago, Charlotte. So there are a lot of people at airports throughout the country stranded at their destinations or stranded at their origin points, trying to get into D.C. I'm curious if we had to deal with any flight diversions at this point, because you can imagine in a situation like this, perhaps planes that were en route were maybe sent somewhere else. But we can imagine the effect this is going to have on commerce coming in and out of Reagan National well into tomorrow at this point.
Yeah, I mean, this is such a busy airport, and also restricted airspace. I mean, that complicates things as well. At this point, we don't want to speculate on anything out there, but we do want to continue to rule things out. I know that the FBI did release a statement earlier saying that there was no signs of any type of foul play or terrorism or anything like that. So right out the gate, we like to put that information out there as soon as we get it, and that's important to pass along as well. So it doesn't appear that seems to be any part of this situation or factor. What we do know is that the Department of Defense, though, is coming to their aid, willing to help in any way that they can. The director of the Department of Defense, Pete Hegseth, already saying that he has been fully briefed on this, and they are standing by, ready to assist.
Shamari Stone, let's go to you right now. You were at Gravelly Point just a little while ago. Let's get a sense of what you're seeing from your vantage point.
Well, right now we are at Gravelly Point. We actually crossed over, and we're bringing you closer to where this collision occurred. You can see the flashing lights right over there by Reagan National Airport. As you see, this is a multi-agency search and rescue operation happening in the Potomac River. It's pretty cold in there, obviously, and after the small American Airlines aircraft flight 5342 from Wichita collided with that Army helicopter near the airport. And as you can see, this is the closest vantage point right now where you don't get in the way of the emergency officials. And Jim, you had actually mentioned around 10 minutes ago about WMATA buses. They are also here, 3 of them, to help the emergency responders because it is very cold out here, and some of them can go to the buses to warm up. But meanwhile, that search and rescue effort is undergoing, and there are more and more people who are coming near Gravelly Point. They actually can't come in here, but they're parking on the George Washington Parkway. You have spectators who are trying to take all this in as they take photos and pictures, but also you have people who are just curious, trying to figure out what exactly is happening. We don't want to speculate on any casualties or anything of that such until we hear from that news conference. But as of right now, there is a search and rescue underway. And as you can see, the flashing lights over there by Reagan National Airport. Back to you.
Mari, thank you. And let me just point out again, and we mentioned this before, and as he said, people were showing up curious onlookers. Look, let's call this what it is. This is a tragic situation. You could see the rescue effort underway. There are so many people who went to work today, didn't expect their night to end like this, or maybe their night's just beginning on the rescue effort. We're asking you, we've not been told to tell you this, but I think common sense prevails. Steer clear of that area, because at this hour, there's going to be countless numbers of emergency vehicles going in and out. We will keep you apprised of what we learn. I think that's the most important thing. I can understand the curiosity. Yeah.
You know, with this literally being in your backyard, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And,
right.
And Grovelly Point being the place that everybody goes just to watch the planes come in and out. So, you know, I know a lot of engagements that happen there. I mean, that's a happy place, but tonight is not the night. And like we said, you know, staying with Fox 5 and staying with us and our team, we have our field of reporters that are going to be out there, our crews, and we are bringing you literally, we're linked up in our ear. People are talking to us as we're talking to you. We're looking up things. We're getting confirmation. We want to make sure that the information we pass along to you is correct. Again, we are not in the business of sitting here to speculate to do a guessing game of what went wrong. We want to give you the information that matters right now and the information that it can impact you. On a more immediate scale.
I keep looking down to see what new information we might have coming in. There's really not a whole lot at this point. Hey, look, here's what I want to do at this point. So we had Kenneth over at the board a few moments ago. I'm wondering, can we bring Kenneth back into this here? Because on the right side of the screen, you're looking at FlightAware, and Kenneth has been looking at the landing path or the flight path over here. And we also get some information about where these planes are coming from. But let's go back. You were talking just about 20 minutes ago about what you were seeing from there. Let's give the people at home what you were seeing in your analysis.
Yeah, anybody can go to FlightAware.com. We use it as a resource here on many days when we're looking at when there's weather, there's severe weather, snowstorms, how many flights are impacted, where flights are coming from. You might even use it for a loved one if you are trying to find out more about their flight information and get real-time information about when are they going to land at one of our DMV airports. And so we went to FlightAware, and you can see this flight path. And the first thing we saw before we started seeing some of these incredible images that we see there on the Potomac of this rescue operation that's happening live, we saw this right here. We saw the flight path that is very typical for any regional jet that's coming into DCA, which again, one of the busiest airports in this nation, that sees anywhere from 600 to 800 flights taking off, landing, again, daily. So you do the math on that, and you can figure out just by minute how many planes are taking off and landing. If you even just ride by Reagan National, or you're on your way to pick up a family member, you see planes coming and going there. People, again, setting up just to see planes taking off from DCA. So we take a look at this flight path here, and we see the flight path of Flight 5342 making this approach, this northern approach up the Potomac, which is very normal. And then you see this green line right here as it crosses it from Virginia over, and there it stops right there at the Potomac. A very eerie sight, I know, to see that, but that is where Jim mentioned, Angie mentioned that when we started getting the emergency calls that were coming in from Southwest DC, this is the reason why, because not only did people see that flash, they probably heard it as well, but the flight path showing that it stops right there, never making it to DCA on that approach. If we zoom out here, we can, again, as we reset, Flight 5342, American Airlines, departed Wichita Airport, 5:39 p.m. Central Standard Time. It was scheduled to leave at 5:28, so just about 11 minutes behind the schedule. But as it made its way here east, you can see no issues, and then it made this approach coming down, passing IAD, Dulles, and coming down, making a very normal flight path here that we see for these planes. that we believe, again, 60 to 70 passengers that this plane carries, this regional jet, and then this approach to DCA, scheduled to land. It was scheduled to land the 8 o'clock hour, right before 9 p.m., that is. And we know that now, and guys, I know I've been staring at this flight aware, but to see that this gate arrival just did not happen, and just to see hash marks or dash marks there, that is tough to see, because we're talking about souls there that were on that flight. As we try to learn more about this flight, where it's coming from, as we look into the safety records. And guys, and I know we've been talking about how busy this airport is. We're talking about the reauthorization of that FAA reauthorization that allowed more flights to come in. The big debate that we covered here on Fox 5 of lawmakers who were against people who live along this flight path right here, who are also against because of noise and other things, and they were concerned about safety, and now this has happened. And so, Jim, as I toss it back over to you guys, just in case you have more information here, this is something that safety, yes, there's an operation, a rescue operation that's happening right now, but safety will be a big talker when we talk about what's next.
American Airlines confirming to Fox 5, 60 passengers were on board that flight, 4 crew members. Again, this was a Bombardier CRJ 700 regional jet going from Wichita to DCA. Again, that's the number of people who are on board. So a total of 60 passengers, 4 crew. That information coming from American Airlines. But at this point, no word on the status of any of them.
And you also have to feel for these air traffic controllers. A lot of times they're in these towers, and in this situation, I mean, they're helpless. There's nothing that they can do at this point. These are workers that have very, very tough jobs, highly stressful jobs. Many of them, we've done the reports, working 6 days a week, 12-hour shifts. It's a tough job, and it's important. It's what makes our town go. I mean, this is a main hub, not only for us, but also for the nation. So you have to imagine there are so many people right now that don't even know what they can do, as we all sit here and wait for answers to find out. More numbers are coming in, obviously, but still, the information that we really want, the information that so many of us need right now is, who is okay? Were they able to do any rescues? What's going to be the next step here?
There's a lot. There's a lot. And again, we're still waiting at this hour for a briefing where we're going to get more information. And you imagine in situations like this, they want to get everything. They want to get everything correct and everything accurate, because we've had situations like this. There have been plane crashes where you hear it was headed in one direction when the reality was it was headed in the complete opposite. In times like these, this is a situation where we have to, it's incumbent upon everybody to make sure the information gets through. And as we talked with flight expert Captain Richard Levy earlier, he thinks that an investigation into this should be pretty straightforward, because you have the data recorder, you have the black boxes on board. There have been flight crash investigations in the past that have taken years to complete. There was one back in 1994. It was U.S. Airways Flight 427 that was landing right outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where there was a problem with the rudder jammed, and it was FAA investigators called it at the time one of the most confounding and confusing investigations. So you hope in a situation like this, regardless of what the outcome may be, we learn what went wrong, and we use that to prevent it from ever happening again. So as we've learned, and just about every elected official at this point is putting out statements, and I wish we could tell you that we had more information from them. I think at times like these, a lot of officials feel like it's important at least to say that they're aware of the situation, which it certainly is important to do that, but we don't have anything groundbreaking from any of those lawmakers, at least not yet at this hour.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting if we're able to talk with the captain again, Captain Levy again, to talk to him about, a lot of times those commercial airliners, they have a system in place. It's a traffic collision communication system of some sort, which actually alerts the pilot to avoid, in the cockpit, alerts the pilot to avoid nearby aircrafts. And whether or not that there was not enough time.
Right.
I mean, it seemed like it all happened rather quickly.
I want to point this out right now. I know if you're watching us in D.C., it may be one thing. If you're watching us on a live stream elsewhere, we just got a report from American Airlines. And what I want to do is, if we can, I'll read the number out loud here. But if you believe you may have had loved ones on board Flight 5342, call American Airlines, and they put out a number, 1-800-679-8215. Although I would imagine, it's entirely possible, again, with this flight landing from Wichita here into D.C. But again, American Airlines now is sharing this information. They're now calling it an accident as opposed to an incident early on. And I realize that is it's just a term, but in times like these, they're trying to make sure the information that gets out there is accurate and not speculative.
Yeah, after confirming that the 60 passengers and 4 crew members were on board their plane that crashed in that midair collision earlier, just before 9 o'clock, they also went on to say that their concern at this moment is for the passengers and the crew that were on board, and that they are in contact with authorities. They're assisting with emergency response efforts at this point, and now offering this phone number, 1-800-679-8215, to those who might have someone who was on the flight or know someone or you're just trying to get information about it. So again, that number, 800-679-8215.
What I'm trying to do is, and I don't know if we have any of this information. We've not seen it come in terms of flights that may have been diverted, because there were a number of flights that were supposed to land at Reagan National and cannot at this point. As mentioned, inbound flights are being held at their origin until Thursday at 5 a.m. But you got to imagine that there's a good possibility there were planes that were en route to Reagan National, because Metro, just within the last half hour or so, said that they are extending Silver Line service out towards Dulles Airport tonight to assist if anybody has had to divert to Dulles. But we don't have any specific examples, but you can imagine that in a situation like this, the GM of WMATA, Randy Clark, certainly may have been given information that would necessitate keeping the transit system open for some time.
It's too early, obviously, to come to any conclusions, but I know prior to breaking in with the information from American Airlines, I was talking a little bit about the collision system, or the alert system that these commercial airliners have in place, and apparently helicopters, Black Hawk helicopters, don't have something of that nature. But because of the structure and the way that it's created, looking at just commentary from Black Hawk pilots online, saying they have a pretty good vantage point. They have good clear views. They can see what's around them if there's something approaching. So, not sure if visibility at all was an issue. Obviously, weather, other than it being dark and being, moonlit, might be the only factor when we talk about visibility. It's too hard to say, but it seems that both aircrafts are not equipped with an alert system of that nature.
So, I want to go back to just things that we've been saying throughout the night in terms of the early speculation and the early information that was coming out. And there are people with sizable social media followings and who have loud voices in American media. And I want to ask all of you watching tonight. I realize times like these, in times in which we live, it is in vogue sometimes to fault what we do, and sometimes that's rightfully so. But what we're doing here is trying to give you factual information. We're not speculating as to what happened. I realize that video we showed you earlier of the collision was stunning. We saw that just as you did in real time on TV. We are just working with the information we have, and I just caution, please, let's hear what happened, because there are 60 passengers and 4 crew members and 3 soldiers tonight who either went up in the air, they were coming back to D.C., maybe they were visiting, the soldiers were just doing their duty, and tonight, they not just their lives are forever changed, but the lives of family and friends. We're talking about human lives here. So we will get you the information as it comes in. I ask you to trust us on this, please. Thank you.
Now we want to bring in Mike Thomas. Mike, I believe you're standing by there. I was talking a little bit about the weather when we were speaking with the captain earlier. Just really trying to piece together, because we look at these live cameras every single night, and it's one of our things that we do. We say, let's look at Reagan National, a great night to be out there flying. Everything's clear. I mean, it's been the talk of the day that the weather finally is starting to cooperate, and so maybe you could shed just a little bit more light when you look at the area and the conditions at the time when this happened.
Right, and that's something, the folks at the National Weather Service work so well with the folks down at D.C. They issue reports every day specific for the pilots, for the planes coming out. They know everything that the wind's doing, how conditions will be. You heard the expert earlier. Are they flying instruments coming in? Not today. They shouldn't have needed it because conditions were so clear. Again, I was able to go back into the data just to see, did any wind shift happen during this particular incident? And the answer is no, at least not the data that's being reported out of DCA. Winds were steady for the better part of the last several hours. West-northwest, 15 to 20 miles per hour. There was a maximum gust of 26. That is more than enough for even the smallest planes to be able to adjust to. So nothing substantial in the winds. Visibility was maximized. 10 miles plus was the reading at Reagan National Airport around this time, and skies were reported clear. No ceiling at all, ceiling being the lowest level of the cloud deck. No clouds overhead during the time of the collision. I know the video you're showing there, hard to watch, but that is the moment that aircraft made contact with, or made a collision with, that helicopter there in D.C. Temperature still holding at 47. The concern, of course, when we're talking about a plane that goes down in the water is with water temperatures. They're in the 30s, widespread. Chesapeake Bay, Potomac River had ice on it all last week, even into this week, and we were able to go in on the buoy and get a reading, and this was live within the last hour. It gave us a reading 35.4 degrees. That is very cold water. Unfortunately, it's water that, is survivable, but you got to get folks out of the water very, very quickly. After about an hour in water like that, you can lose consciousness 15 to 30 minutes, but after an hour in the water, your chances of survival do go down very, very quickly. Of course, the buoy a little bit farther away from Reagan National Airport. It is the closest reading, though, that we have to DCA. Now, we're showing you this video here, which is coming off of the Earth Cam that overlooks the Lincoln Memorial. Lincoln Memorial way up here, and this plane was on approach, kind of coming across Maryland, about to head into D.C., right across the Potomac River there. So that was the flight track according to FlightAware there as it was making approach to the airport. Did look at the runway map, that you can see, and the runway 33 approach, which is the one that this plane was taking, it was trying to land on this runway right here. It's a little bit of a shorter runway compared to the longer ones that they are often used for takeoff. You see in that video, there's that initial plane that goes by. That was far away. That it was way, way up here as that plane had taken off on that runway, heading off to the north and west. Really quick, just to mention water depths around that region. Eastern half of the river, depth is about 30 to 36 feet. Once you get closer to DCA, it does go down substantially, about 5 to 15 feet of depth there as you approach runway 33. Guys?
Mike Thomas, thank you. All right, so south of, and as you look at the map there, a little south of Alexandria, Arlington is Dangerfield Island. That's where Bob Barnard is right now. Let's check in with Bob at this point. Bob, you're up late with us. We appreciate it. Let's get a report from you.
Yeah, guys, I'll tell you what, there are hundreds of people out here, just ordinary citizens who are just compelled to come to the river's edge to do what they can, to see what they can see. And what we're seeing from here, as you described it, Jim, just south of Reagan Airport, just south of the runways here, it's a marina. If you're familiar with this area, it's on the Virginia side, Dangerfield Island, looking directly across the river, and it's probably about a mile from here is where the search and ideally rescue activity is taking place. So it's directly across Clearview. It's quite a distance, but this is where people are coming to just, they're compelled to witness this thing. Nothing like this happening for more than 40 years here. And I'll tell you, it's heartbreaking to see. As you're coming in, people are walking out just shaking their head. of all walks of life. And it's just rather extraordinary. But I will tell you, from this ground level vantage point directly across the Potomac River, there are just dozens and dozens of flashing lights. You can see them from our images that we're sharing with our viewers right there. Both straight across, kind of like where we believe this crash happened, as you've been describing, Joint Base Bowling. You know, that's where Marine One is stationed. So that's all federal property. So I'm going to try, as soon as I'm done speaking to you here and now, to go around to the D.C. side to see as close as we can get to where the activity is happening. But also there's quite a bit also south of here. And so they're like two locations. We're not sure if one is a staging area where they're maybe bringing people if they're pulled from the river, and the other is where they're actually doing the search. But there are two distinct large groups of flashing lights and activity, and both appear to be on the D.C. side, from this vantage point, on the D.C. side of the Potomac River, and you know, where it stretches down into Maryland at some point, perhaps. But it's just extraordinary and heartbreaking. And again, people are just compelled to come to the river's edge here on the Virginia side just to take it in, and we see people praying.
So, Bob, let me ask you, as we were looking at where Shamari was earlier at Gravelly Point, and we all know because it's right there, right on the edge of the runways, where you are, where there are curious onlookers, you're far enough away from the airport, I would imagine, where it doesn't appear that that's impeding any sort of response, correct?
Not at all, because it doesn't appear that any of the Marine rescue units have launched from this side, from the Virginia side. They're all on the other side. So no, this is just open. There was nothing keeping anyone from coming here. You know, there are other media here, but primarily just people who are compelled to leave their homes and watch the helicopters flying above and seeing what they can. It's disheartening, frankly.
Yep.
Wow. Well, thank you, Bob, so much for joining us and giving us perspective down there on a very difficult night. We know now that the FBI has confirmed that they are aiding in the response of this crash. The U.S. Coast Guard, we heard earlier, the Department of Homeland Security saying that they have made every available resource available in this effort.
Josh Rosenthal joining us live now tonight. Josh, where are you at and what are you seeing?
Jim, we're in Navy Yard. Just to set the scene for you here, that's Nats Park behind me. If you look over here, this is the Frederick Douglass Memorial Bridge. And then if you follow me in this direction, this appears to be one of what I imagine is several staging areas for emergency personnel. D.C. police have a helipad down here, and some people that we were just talking to have been here longer than we have, said they saw a D.C. police helicopter land here. We also earlier crossed over the Frederick Douglass Memorial Bridge, and it appears as though there's a dock. This may be a place where they're getting some boats into the water. It's difficult to tell because so much of it is shut down, but as you can see behind me, there's a lot of emergency personnel. As far as traffic goes in this area, take a look over here. A lot of these streets are blocked off. It was not difficult for us to get down to this general area. However, once we were here, it was extremely difficult to get to where we are now, to find parking. In fact, we were able to cross over the Frederick Douglass Memorial Bridge, but then we weren't able to come back, so we had to loop back around on 495. It is a very chaotic scene. It's a lot of people like these gentlemen here kind of just trying to figure out what is going on. Obviously, everyone is extremely concerned for the people who are involved in this crash. And again, down here, you've got a lot of emergency personnel staging. It's difficult for us to tell you from our vantage point exactly what they're doing, although I can tell you we've been standing in this exact spot for 5 minutes, and a lot of times people hear of a crash like this, a tragedy like this, an emergency like this, and you think of people running all over, and I'm sure that is happening to an extent in other places. Right here, though, this is the scene that we've been looking at. It's a lot of emergency personnel who appear to be ready to spring into action. However, we personally have not observed a lot of movement here so far, guys, although I can tell you a lot of vehicles over there, a lot of emergency personnel over here, and Jim and Angie, a lot of concerned people here doing the same thing we are. which is trying to figure out exactly what's going on.
We have been to, we've all been to events down in the Navy Yard, and it's striking when you see the helicopters, the military helicopters, doing their thing, flying over there. And we're so conditioned in D.C. to not hearing helicopters overhead that when those initial calls came in from Southwest, not too far away from where you are, understandable why that often gives you a moment to pause.
Yeah, absolutely. And this, what we're seeing right now, this is different from what this area normally looks like. You're used to seeing law enforcement everywhere, but not like this. All these roads are blocked off. It is eerily quiet. It is eerily calm, despite all these emergency lights. So again, guys, it's just we, like everybody else, we're trying to piece together what exactly is happening here.
It is still so staggering. Josh Rosenthal for us tonight there at Navy Yard. We will check back in with you here shortly. Thank you. And you're right, Jim. The one thing that I hear from the eyewitness accounts or people that heard it, they said there was a huge boom, is that there's a lot of condos out that way where he is,
a lot of apartments, everything, yeah.
And it's just common. You just see helicopters coming to and fro, and it's no big deal. And it wasn't until they heard sirens after sirens, that they looked out and they said, whoa, okay, something is going on here that is out of the ordinary. And it is quite extraordinary.
11:30 right now. If you're joining us here at Fox 5, we're in extended live coverage of the crash of American Airlines 5342, which was going nonstop from Wichita, Kansas to Reagan National Airport. It crashed right around 9 o'clock at night. Excuse me. A military helicopter was flying, and we have video, and we've seen it many times, and you're going to see it many times again for the time being, unfortunately. But it really does. It's the most tangible image of what happened. Our EarthCam camera right near the Kennedy Center, which showed that Black Hawk helicopter colliding with that flight. It was a Bombardier 700 flight with 64 people on board, 60 passengers, 4 crew. As for the military helicopter, 3 soldiers were on board that, and we'll watch it again. And as we pointed out a couple of times, you see that plane up on top. That had nothing to do with it, but the collision happened right below it, that fireball that erupts just as you see all of those vehicles crossing the Potomac, leaving the city. Still at this hour, and here we are 2.5 hours after the collision, we don't have any clear picture if anybody survived. We've been hearing reports, and right now we've talked with a passenger, somebody who was standing by at Reagan National Airport, which, by the way, is closed. All inbound flights being held until at least 5 a.m. Let's take a listen.
We got boarded out of the plane, and maybe 20 minutes later, a crew member came in and said that there had been an issue, and we're going to have the airport is closed, and it probably will be closed for at least the next 2 hours, and they wanted everybody to deboard the plane. We waited to see what would change, and later they let us know that the airport was closed for the rest of the night, and maybe tomorrow as well. They also let us know what was going on, that there seemed to have been a military helicopter that crashed with a plane, but we didn't really hear too many details from that. And it's kind of different than what I've been hearing on the news, so we're not really sure.
When you were on the plane, you said you looked out the window. What did you see?
I saw about probably like along the river, a little further out from the airport. You can see 2, 3, maybe 4 blocks of just lights all the way down.
Does this worry you since you were on a plane and when this all goes down?
It worried me quite a bit. And my wife was really concerned, and she's like, you should just get out of that airport, go somewhere, stay at a hotel, and leave from another airport tomorrow.
lot of people were in that situation tonight where they were on a plane or else they were on the way into Reagan National. A number of flights have been diverted. Metro is running additional service on the Silver Line tonight, going from Dulles Airport to Metro Center. And then at Metro Center, they will bus people back to Reagan Airport. But we should point out, Angie, with this flight coming into D.C., I hope people are watching. I hope nobody's directly affected. But if you are, American Airlines does have a statement out tonight, and they have established a hotline. It's on the screen, 1-800-679-8215. That's how they're going to disseminate information. And again, we're waiting for a briefing. We don't know when that's going to happen, if it's going to happen tonight now.
They haven't even given us a window. I mean, the next closest thing that we heard of any kind of briefing and timing was when Senator Ted Cruz says that they expected to be briefed by the FAA Thursday morning, tomorrow morning. We don't know exactly when that will be. Hopefully, us as the media and these families will be briefed before that with what they know. What we can tell you, though, is what is evident through what you see on your screens right here, and that is everybody in this area that has the power to help out in this situation and try to find more people and save more lives is out and about and doing what they can. The FBI joining the search and rescue, the response in this crash. The U.S. Coast Guard out in full force. We know the Maryland State Police, they have deployed their divers. They are in that frigid water right now, the frigid Potomac, here at the scene of the helicopter and plane collision. We still don't know how much. If both aircrafts are submerged in the water, it's really hard because it is so dark, and that adds to it complicates things and the amount of danger. It increases the danger factor here, and obviously visibility a big factor. Dozens of firefighters also joining in those dive operations. So we got a lot of people on the ground that you can see, but we also have a lot of people in the water as well, working to do everything that they can in their power right now to bring survivors to safety.
As we mentioned before, all this came in tonight, right around, and the news around 9 o'clock. And, initial reports come in that it was a small crash. Then we heard the helicopter was involved. Then there was conflicting reports of where the helicopter was coming from. And that's really situations like this. This is just how breaking news works. And we often hope all this information comes in and we just hope it's overblown. And that's generally what we were hoping for, regardless. As we sit here and we're waiting just with so many of you to get some answers on this. We are going to remain on the air, it appears, through the evening into the morning. The morning crew will be joining us in a couple of hours because once we get those initial reports and once we get the initial information, then comes obviously the impacts it's going to have on air travel in and out of D.C. And I realize that is not the most important thing to talk about. Talk about people flying out, but regardless, this is the nation's capital, and lawmakers fly in and out of there, dignitaries fly in and out of there. It's not just passenger flights, as we know, many other important flights, smaller flights, larger flights, they all come in and out of Reagan Airport. We do know that, as Angie mentioned some time ago, the newly minted Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy is monitoring the situation. They have reached out to Governor Youngkin, Mayor Bowser, Laura Kelly, who's the governor of Kansas, and Jennifer Homendy, who's the National Transportation Safety Board chair. They're all going to work together on this. But as far as information that we are getting from a district standpoint, DC police have sort of taken over, speaking for DC Fire and EMS. They were the initial responders. In fact, it was DC Fire and EMS that initially put out the reports confirming that a collision happened. But the numbers you've seen on the screen, it's 64 on the plane, 60 passengers, four crew members, and 3 soldiers on board that military helicopter.
Yeah, which was, I believe, out of Belvoir, right? I believe they were connected to Belvoir. That was, let's see here. They said it was a UH-60 helicopter out of Fort Belvoir. So,
and that's the thing. We're sharing with you the information that we have confirmed and what we know. But again, these are coming from reputable sources, including from American Airlines, which they had said that they will be doing some sort of public announcement a little bit later on. But that seems to be, there was never really a time frame put on it in the first place.
No. First and foremost, I mean, the most important thing right now is trying to bring these people to safety, trying to save as many lives as possible. And that really is where the focus is right now. Going forward, the way it will probably play out, if you were to look at it on paper and you look at how things have played out in history, is that the NTSB, which is already taking the lead here on this crash investigation, will lead the charge, and the FAA will weigh in and assist in any way, also review safety regulations. I mean, a lot of times, I mean, we talked about Air Florida from 40 years ago. That significantly changed the way airliners and airports did business when it came to how they dealt with winter weather and flying in and out of winter weather. And it changed protocols, and who knows if this is going to have the same effect and impact and will lead to, future regulations, because we simply just don't know why it happened at this point, and if, what could have made it avoidable. But more light will be shed on it once we do have access to the information provided by the black box, the flight data, and of course the cockpit voice recorder and the chatter that we're going to find on there that might be able to reveal more information about what led up to it, analyze the cause. Then you've got the witnesses, then you've got the pilots, then you have the air traffic controllers. A lot of voices, a lot of pieces to this puzzle that need to be put together. But again, right now our focus is on let's try to. The Associated
Press now saying that Reagan National Airport's closed until 5 a.m. on Friday. That coming down from the Associated Press just 6 minutes ago. So the airport is now closed until 5 a.m. on Friday. That news just coming in by way of the AP. As we've been talking about this in terms of the situations we've seen in the sky in the past, I want to bring in Nana St-Yobonsu, who is live now inside the airport near those boards and speaking with people. And I just want to point something out, Nana, before we come to you. And this is something, is I look over your shoulder and I see Fred Rogers, and he said something I remember as a kid, which is look for the helpers. And there are a heck of a lot of helpers out there tonight trying to bring some peace to a lot of families, and the helpers out there, we thank them for their service. Nana, what can you tell us?
Yes, Jim. So right now we are inside the airport. We're on the ticketing level, and all the screens throughout the airport say just this: due to an emergency situation, all flights are being held on the airfields. Now let's talk about the fact that flights are being held. We had a chance to speak to a number of people who tell me that they were actually on their flight. They were boarded, getting ready to take off when there was an emergency kind of exit. Obviously, they get inside the airport and then find out the unfortunate tragedy that took place. One woman I was speaking to brought up a good point. Even though it's a fluid situation, there's a lot going on. She says, we're trapped in the airport. We can't leave. As we've been reporting, the airport is closed. You can't come in. You can't come out. Her Ubers aren't, able to pick her up, and she's terrified. She's distraught. She has a lot of questions. A couple of other people we spoke to say they don't know what to do. They're just sitting and waiting around. But right now, there is no activity. Across over here, you can actually see this, active scene that we've been looking at all night. I'm going to have Sanan actually push into it and see how close we can get. But all those lights over there, that's the Potomac River. On the other side is D.C. It's still obviously very active. We have fire. We have police. As we've been saying, this is a multi-agency effort. Everyone coming together. Just to help. You mentioned helpers, but that's the situation in the airport. It is closed off, but there are a number of people here just trying to figure out what is next. How do they get home? Obviously people are like, how do I get rebooked, reassigned? Not everyone is from here. So, we're still walking the terminal, speaking to people, but a lot of people, very emotional about what happened. One woman said, could have been their plane that was taking off or trying to land, right? and just trying to get some answers while we're up here. But I know we mentioned earlier, the Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority says stand by for a statement right now. That briefing has been put on hold, but media is being sent to a specific location in the airport. So that's why I'm assuming there will still be some kind of update if they're sending us to an area. But right now we're just in the terminal, walking around, trying to get some answers, trying to find people to speak with. But again, because of this emergency situation, all flights are being held. No flights are taking off and no flights are landing. So a lot of questions and uncertainty here. But I mean, we have passengers, like, just take a look, just walking, trying to figure it out. There were people coming to look at the boards, but when they look at the boards, it says, due to an emergency situation, there's not much that they can do. A lot of people looking for questions today. So let me ask her something. Excuse me, are you traveling? Are you taking off? I'm a journalist. Oh, you're a journalist? She's a journalist, okay. But yes, just trying to get an idea of everyone that's in here right now. Jim?
Nana, let me ask you this, and I know you showed the boards there, and that's really as much information as we're getting out there. We have from the AP that they said things are going to be closed, that no flights are out until 5 a.m. I've not seen, I want to point out, I said that because the Associated Press had reported that. I'm not seeing that anywhere from any official airport channels. So if you get a chance, next time we talk to you, if you hear from anybody, because right now everything's saying 5 a.m. tomorrow, but it looks like we may see an airport closed until Friday. So that's the one question I think we're all collectively going to try to get answered between now and then. So I just wanted to put that out there for you. If you happen to hear, please let us know.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to check back in with Nana coming up in just a little bit. Again, we mentioned things are fluid, but that was from Zeke Miller's reporting. And what do you have there?
Yeah, I'm just trying to see if the airport's done any updates other than updating media. You can stand by for your briefings.
Yeah,
but,
and by the way, that's to be determined now. Originally, they had said it was going to be somewhat imminent, but that's not going to be the case. One of the big concerns out here that we mentioned, we were checking with Mike Thomas about the weather conditions, was not necessarily about not just about the air conditions, but the water temperatures.
Oh, yeah.
Because the water temperatures, according to buoys out there, were so cold, and the temperatures were so cold, it does not lend itself well to surviving in the water for long periods of time.
No. I mean, that is really what is going to increase the danger here, the danger factor. I mean, along with the low visibility we talked about, and the temperatures, it's the water. I mean, we saw today pieces of ice and snow breaking away finally on the Potomac, but it's still cold enough for
they reversed. Armin Kurdian is a frequent guest here on Fox 5. He does a little bit of everything, but Armin, you have a good amount of aviation experience, and I think knowing at least what we know right now, how does something like this, I think it's a question a lot of people have. I don't know if you have the answer. How does something like this happen?
Well, I'm going to have to give you a few hypothetical scenarios. Just watching that video and how it actually occurred. As the American Airlines jet is descending, the pilot, if the pilot, probably hadn't flared, is probably still looking down, but you can't really see what's below your aircraft very well. The helicopter, on the other hand, has very good visibility above it, so the pilots would be able to see what's happening above. So I say, okay, how did the helicopter not see this American Airlines jet with flashing strobes in front of them? Were the pilots distracted in the cockpit? Were they looking at something? Did they have some other kind of issue? One is talking on the radio. Were they looking at a different display? As you can see, this happened very, very quickly as perhaps the jet came into the helicopter's view. They may have only had a few seconds to actually notice it. Now, the other question is, okay, the air traffic control is talking to the American jet and the helicopter at the same time. Was it the same air traffic controller? Or perhaps were one or both of the aircraft not reporting their altitude correctly? It might have been said before, ADS-B, ADS-B, which is a way for aircraft in that airspace to precisely state where they are on a regular basis. They basically push out their GPS position. In the old days, it was just IFF, so it was just a singular sort of ping, an active ping on the radar saying, here I am, but the radar can only figure out where it was. In this case, the GPS position says this is exactly where I am in three-dimensional space. So if such a collision was about to occur, the air traffic controller would get an immediate alert. They would see two converging tracks into the same piece of airspace, stay within 1,000 feet of each other. The air traffic controller would be alerted. You didn't hear any type of urgency in the voice of the air traffic controller. So that would lead me to believe that perhaps one or both of the aircraft were not broadcasting ADS-B, or there was perhaps a problem there. So there's a lot of potential possibilities. However, it does seem, at least on first glance, without knowing more, that both aircraft seem to be operating nominally without any other kinds of emergencies or other kinds of issues, unless something happened that we simply didn't hear on tape.
I want to point out to those of you referenced the video or the audio. We read the audio. We do not have that to share. Otherwise, we would do so. But I appreciate you sharing it because I think you can tell a lot from the inflections and the tone of voice in situations like that.
Yeah, it definitely adds context to it. Sense of urgency. Armand, I want to ask you because back in 2023, the Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority president had really advocated against.
Hey, hang on one second. Hang on.
Okay.
So we just got in our ears, and I want to point this out. That helicopter, the Sikorsky helicopter, the Black Hawk helicopter, was on a training mission when it crashed. Just to share that with everybody. And again, 3 soldiers on board, no idea of their condition, nor do we have any clue about the 64 people on board that plane.
And
Go
you can
ahead,
correct me if I'm wrong, but in training missions, those are routine for them. This is their training area. It happens quite a bit. You see a lot of helicopters around, and so perhaps a routine training mission. But good information there. But just going back to what the airport authority president said, he advocated against adding more flights, additional flights, said that they were already operating at full capacity, that the main runway here at DCA is the most widely one used. I think 90% of their flights come in and out of it, one of the busiest runways in the nation. And so this is a busy airport. Is there, just in your experience, with what we saw reports leading up to this of near misses and close calls, but valid concern here where we live?
So not knowing exactly what the number of takeoff and landings are going on, you have to just look at the geography, though. Reagan National is right in the heart of the D.C. area. Basically the national capital region, let's say, right there in the heart of the Potomac. So when you look at the air traffic load coming into Dulles, into Baltimore, Washington International, certainly you can understand their hesitancy to bring in additional folks. And then you have to ask, well, why would he say that? Well, there could be some very good reasons. Perhaps the number of air traffic controllers they have was simply not enough. Perhaps the amount of ground crews was a limiting factor. Perhaps there were some other limiting factors that would prevent them from handling more aircraft. Not necessarily a safety issue, but simply from a logistics standpoint. It takes a lot to bring in an aircraft and send it off.
Yeah.
So it could be a number of factors.
Armand, thank you very much. Again, we're getting more information as it comes in by the moment here, and we got to go out to Shamari Stone, who is right near the airport, with more.
Hey, Show.
Hey, Jim and Angie, we're here by Gravely Point, and you can see behind me, that is where this search and rescue effort is happening. A lot of people have been coming out here concerned about these 64 people who are on board this flight. I'm joined by Mark Hecker. He's actually from Washington State, and you are in D.C. for business. You're out here. What's going through your mind right now, Mark?
I just, wrapped up our dinner and everything, and we had a conference and, saw this on the news. And I spent a lot of time in Washington, D.C. earlier in my life, and used to come out here to Gravely Point to watch the planes, and I just couldn't sit in the hotel room. Just had to kind of come out and take a look at it and, take a moment to, give some thoughts and prayers for the people that are involved here.
your reaction when you see right over there's Reagan National Airport. There's the flashing lights. There's a lot of activity with police, U.S. Park Police, emergency crews. You have fire trucks going back and forth. What's going through your mind with that, Mark?
I mean, you could hear it all from our hotel room, and it was weird because you could hear that something really big must have happened because there were so many sirens going off. And I mean, it's just an incredible show of support, you know, from the local emergency responders to come out. And I mean, I think back, I mean, it's stunning to see DC National with no planes coming out of it. I mean, the last time I remember seeing something of that was 9/11, and
me too.
We are, so it's really sad. And you know, I really hope we can find something and hold that out. But you know, it's just a tragic thing to see, and my prayers for the people that are involved.
Well, I want to thank you for speaking with me, Mark. You take it easy, and yeah, it's really cold out here. Moments ago, I just spoke to some employees who were on the WMATA buses, and they tell me that they are waiting just to help the emergency responders if they need to warm up, because it is pretty cold out here tonight. And there are also Metro Transit officers, and they are also on standby. Everyone's right now on just basically wait and see mode, because right by Gravely Point, there's actually a dock here, and that is where some of the boats, the search and rescue boats, were coming in and out of. And Bob Barnard is at another area, and this is one of them where crews are basically on standby. They're listening to dispatch. They're also speaking with federal authorities to determine what to do next. And basically now people are just, you know, offering their thoughts and prayers for everyone involved in this midair collision. Back to you.
All right, Shamari Stone for us tonight, and we are getting word that there will be a briefing at 12:30 a.m. On what happened. That should be the first official word. And according to Sierra Fox, we're learning that there could be briefings every hour after that as warranted. I presume we will bring that to you, or at least the information that comes out of that press conference, live for you here on Fox 5 as we continue our live breaking coverage into the evening. We want to point out that number on your screen right now. If you know anybody, if you are concerned that you may have a loved one on board that flight which was 5342 from Wichita to Reagan National, call the number on your screen. I caution you, only if you are concerned that you have a family member on that flight should you call this number, 1-800-679-8215.
Yeah, and at this time, we know that no flights are coming in or out of DCA. The FAA confirming that Washington Reagan National will be closed until 5 a.m. on Friday. So 5 a.m. Friday. So all day tomorrow till the next morning. And that, of course, is subject to change, and we will keep you posted on that. In the meantime, Sierra, she is in the terminal, and she says that all but a few passengers and personnel are still in there. But we saw with Nana, there were some that said they can't leave, that they couldn't find a way out. They couldn't get access to their Uber. They're pretty much stranded there. So we'll see if their conditions change, you know, over time. But what is good and what is promising, at least we do expect to have that update here within the next half hour or so, around 12:30, and then hopefully an update every hour after that, if they can. At least that's what they're telling our sources there on the ground. Just to reiterate, what we do know is that a passenger plane carrying 60 passengers and 4 crew members that was incoming from Wichita, Kansas, expected to land right before 9 o'clock p.m. American Airlines 5342 at some point collided with an Army Black Hawk helicopter that was on a training mission, a helicopter that is out of Fort Belvoir. And at this time, it is believed that the aircrafts are in the Potomac, and that is where the rescue operation does continue. At this point, we don't know. We have no confirmation that anybody or anything has been pulled from the water.
Yeah.
We haven't seen any evidence of that, and we have not been told otherwise.
So when Nana mentioned, and Angie just reiterated about the people who were concerned about being stuck at the airport, Metro, Shamari took us over towards one of those buses where they're using Metro buses to warm up first responders, but more significantly, because there have been reports of flights being diverted, Metro is running Silver Line service late tonight, going from Dulles Airport, where some of these flights have apparently been, at least according to FlightAware. We have not confirmed with NWAA if any of these flights were confirmed, but FlightAware says some of them have been diverted elsewhere. So they are running Metro service from Dulles out towards Metro Center, and then at Metro Center they will run bus service to get people down to Reagan Airport if they are parked there, if they're trying to get around. Metro service, by the way, obviously Silverline does not run to Reagan Airport, which is why they have that bus service going. But take a look at your screen right now on the left side, and you can see this is an extraordinary shot of some of those rescue workers on board one of those boats in the water. Really the closest I think we've been able to get so far tonight. Yeah, that's over from Alexandria.
Okay. Yeah, and because we know that some of the divers from Maryland were some of the first ones in the water as well. I mean, they've come from all over the DMV to help out in this effort. And we also know that Governor Wes Moore has elevated the level of emergency response to an enhanced status, so that they too can help in any way possible.
This is such a unique, I mean, unlike any other airport in the country, because you have the airport's federal property. It's located in Virginia. It's adjacent to the district, which is part of by exchange the federal government, and Maryland's nearby. So that's why you're seeing all of these agencies involved, and clearly it appears that they know who's taking the lead on this. As they continue to go through this, but you're still seeing vehicles just speeding in and out of that area. And one thing that just is striking is you're still seeing that presence on that camera down below.
It really has not changed.
No, it got bigger and bigger, and then that's what we've seen.
It continues to grow. And I know that Kenneth showed the flight path earlier, and so did Mike. He was able to really put it out on the map to give you perspective. I'm not one of those people that when we're flying, I have the windows open and I'm looking when you're landing. But for those that fly in and out of Reagan National, there is that main runway that I talked about that they say is one of the busiest ones in our nation. But then there's that shorter runway, and that's for the shorter planes. And this is the one that this plane was apparently approaching.
Midnight right now. You're watching Fox 5 Live, continuous coverage of the crash of American Airlines Flight 5342 with a military helicopter. Richard Levy is a former pilot. He's a captain of Aviation Expert Consulting, live with us. We talked with you about an hour or so ago, and I know some of the things we might talk about are things that we've reiterated, but I'm going to start with a question I asked Armin, because people have asked this tonight. How does this happen?
How does this happen? Misunderstood air traffic control clearance and distractions. Specifically, if the Army helicopter, the Black Hawk, was told to stay clear of the final approach course to the runway where the mid-air collision occurred, they, as I understand, were in a training mission. And it means there's an instructor pilot and a brand new pilot, and that's nothing wrong with that at all. Training takes place all the time. But were they distracted, and did they misunderstand the air traffic controller's instructions to stay away from the path of the incoming CRJ 700? And so there's where the first mistake could have taken place there, because the blades of the helicopter went through the CRJ 700. And also the CRJ 700 has what's called TCAS on it, Traffic Collision Avoidance System. You get an oral warning through your headset in the speakers on the flight deck, and it tells you which direction to maneuver the airplane to avoid a mid-air collision. Obviously, it happened so fast that there was not enough time for the signal to be processed by the airplane's computers. And so the mid-air collision happened there. So what did the controller say, the air traffic controller at Reagan, and what did the military Black Hawk pilots understand? That will come out of the cockpit voice recorders. Of course, the same of the CRJ 700. But it happened so fast, I'm not sure you're going to get much information there. Unless you hear them talking, oh, there's a helicopter out there. And we'll find out about that once they recover the, what they call black box. It is really orange, out of the Potomac River.
Yeah, because it's hard to tell from the video, right? You don't really see all that much from the video, but from what you can gauge, I mean, so many questions raised on whether or not the pilots had time to actually see each other, if they had the proper awareness. You answered my question about whether or not they were alerted through the that automation system that lets you know, hey, there's an airplane nearby. And I know that helicopters, Blackhawks in particular, they don't have that kind of mechanism in place like the airplanes do, but it sounds like, you know, there just wasn't enough time for them to be alerted or to be warned that somebody was that close. So where does it go from here? Right now, we don't even know if they've taken anybody out of the water, if they've taken any of the aircraft out of the water. We know that the airport now is closed, though. They've made that decisive decision to
till
close
5 a.m. on Friday now.
Till Friday, so another full day for this investigation to go on. So what does that tell you?
Well, I want to make a point that you talked about. You just said something that could be a clue about 10 seconds ago. When there's another aircraft, helicopter, fixed wing, that is approaching the runway I am landing on, the controller will say, to give me the call sign and say, look over at your 2 o'clock. It's like an hour clock, and that's off to the right side. 5 miles, there's a helicopter. Do you have the helicopter in sight? And I would answer, or my first officer would say, we see the helicopter. Okay. And then the controller would say, that helicopter is maintaining visual separation from you. Nothing unusual, nothing unsafe. That's correct. That's going to be a question I'm going to raise. So will the investigators, obviously. Was the helicopter pointed out to the CRJ coming in? Now, to your next question or comment about the temperature of the water, we'll call it ambient. The temperature in Washington, I believe, is in the 50s right now.
46
but the water,
degrees air temperature, 46 degrees at Reagan National.
46 degrees. We know the water is colder than that. Has that been reported? 30 in the 30s, perhaps?
Yeah, the buoys that our meteorologists have been tracking, the buoys right near the Weather Observation Center at Reagan National have that, and I can go back and find it, but it was mid-30s.
Okay, that's good enough. The survivability is very short, very limited with cold temperatures like that. Back in the, what was it, Air Florida in the 80s?
Yep.
I'm not sure.
1982.
Thank you. And that was wintertime. So there you go once again. Whether it's the North Atlantic or the Potomac River, you've got very cold temperatures. Survivability, regretfully, is very short due to that temperature.
And you know, obviously, that also was a byproduct of a plane not properly being de-iced, which in a situation like this, you don't worry so much about. But as we were panning across it, I don't know if you could see it, but just the giant outpouring of rescue effort that we're seeing right now playing out at the airport is truly stunning, because it hasn't changed all night. We should point out that we're going to hear more from the FAA coming up at 12:30. But I asked you a question last time around that we'll reiterate again, because we were looking at the flight path, and anybody who flies into Reagan knows, you know, you do that northern approach and you get the beautiful views. But there's a reason that can be treacherous at certain parts of the day, especially when you're getting into the later part of the evening.
It sure is. Again, the weather was not an issue tonight with this mid-air collision whatsoever. And why the CRJ wasn't told about the helicopter, and then what was the helicopter actually doing? Obviously, a helicopter can hover, can remain stationary and away from the CRJ. So at nighttime, the visibility, because it's obviously nighttime, is somewhat limited, but it's clear. You can see, as you look at the Mercy vehicles, we see aircraft, helicopters or fixed wings, with a rotating beacon above and or below the fuselage and red and white lights. Now, that is a fixed wing airplane. The helicopter has different types of anti-collision lights, but the airplane is lighted sufficiently. So we're going to find out, what did the Army helicopter understand, and were they complying with the clearance? That's going to be huge.
Okay. And Captain, I mean, what happens now? I mean, everybody who was involved there? The air traffic controllers, I mean, do they stay put? What happens as this investigation goes forward? I know the rescue operation is front and center, but I have to imagine that they want to get to the bottom of this as soon as possible.
Oh, they will. Of course, as you both mentioned, the airport's closed for obvious reasons, but they will remove the controllers from duty, and then they will take initial statements, file the paperwork, so they're going to get the information controllers. But the air traffic control communications, they're recorded. They're a matter of law. They are a record right now. And also, as I've mentioned a couple of times, the cockpit voice recorder, which records during this whole entire mid-air collision before and at the point of it, will be pulled up out of the water. And probably not a big consequence is the FDR. That's the flight data recorder that records so many parameters about the speed of the aircraft, how they were flying the airplane, the flight controls. But I'm not saying that is going to be a big factor. Communications, understanding of the clearance is going to be huge in this accident.
Wow. And this is both aircrafts you're talking about, that they'll get the black box from both aircrafts and be able to see how they
is there a standard for that, Richard? I mean, is there a standard? Is a military black box built the same as one that you would find in a commercial air flight?
I've got to be 100% honest with both of you all that I do not know the answer to that of the Black Hawk helicopter, whether they have flight data recorders. I could think of some reasons why they should have it for accident investigation, and then you're talking about military combat potential. Would you want that on a helicopter? So that's a different question. I don't know, but all regional airliners and the major airlines, that would be the Delta, the American, Southwest, et cetera, in these regional airlines, they are required by FAR, Federal Aviation Regulation 121, to have an operable voice recorder. So absolutely, they're going to have it on that. Again, what they're going to gather, because this happened suddenly and unexpectedly, because they would have avoided the helicopter if they had enough time to see it.
And Captain, we're seeing reports that the plane was apparently broken into two pieces. What does that tell you? What does that indicate to you?
That, again, without having facts, but that indicates to me a very, very horrible, terrible mid-air collision of the rotor blades on top of the helicopter sliced through the regional jet. And that's what that tells me. A sudden, of course it's unexpected, it's silly to say otherwise, but a rapid, without warning, mid-air collision. And that the blades went through the CRJ 700, operated by PSA Airlines.
All right, Captain Richard Levy is joining us here on Fox 5 with that latest information. And again, sir, thank you very much for the expertise. What I want to do now is bring in our meteorologist, Mike Thomas. We've been talking about the lay of the land there, and you have a better idea of this search zone, which we're seeing the video of, but you have the location.
Right, we have the location, which is just off to the east of the airport here, right sort of over where we've been showing you Flight Aware here on Fox 5, where it shows the track going right across the river here. So we're showing you all these live pictures of the rescue efforts down there. I do, again, want to walk you through. We mentioned with Captain Levy there, water temperatures 35.4 degrees right around Reagan National Airport. You can lose consciousness 15 to 30 minutes in water that cold, and then the chance of survival after about an hour within water like that really goes down very, very quickly. So crews would have needed to be on scene as soon as possible. And they did get there quickly. Runway 33, this one here, was the runway that the flight was attempting to land on when that crash occurred. Now, this is the area where we're watching and where you see all this activity, where the boats are out and they're doing some searching. On the eastern side, and this was done on purpose, away from the airport, you have the shipping channel. This was actually dug down to be deeper than most of the river. So the Anacostia Channel runs along the eastern half of the Potomac Potomac there. It's at a depth of about 30 to 35, 36 feet in some spots on that eastern flank, closer to the Maryland side of the river. Now, most of the river itself, once you get beyond that very narrow channel there, most of the river is about 5 to 15 feet deep after that. Average depth kind of right around 7.5 feet in most locations as you approach. Right there, that's runway 33 there. So we have had reporters down at Dangerfield Island. That is right here, Reagan National, just north of there. But based on the FlightAware, this was the approximate path that plane was taking, kind of hugging the coastline there on the Maryland side before a turn in to runway 33. And it seems to be somewhere during that turn that collision may have happened, and maybe even a little bit before it as it was approaching that runway right there highlighted in orange. So lots of information continues to come in. That is the area, and those are some of the depths that the rescue crews are having to deal with tonight. So for the most part, anywhere between about 7 to 15 feet of water, guys.
All right, Mike, thank you very much. As mentioned, that is our area, and I'm glad you pointed out Dangerfield Island, because that's where, when we checked in with Bob Barnard a little while ago, and that's been a place where people have been going to watch the effort. They were trying to caution people from staying away from Gravelly Point, because for a while that was a staging area for a lot of the rescue boats. But at this hour, it looks like things are very static until we get that press briefing coming up at 12:30 this morning, which we will carry here. And again, we're expecting briefings every hour on the hour. I would expect what we learned about that first one is going to be just what they know. I don't think we're going to get many other answers because it is so early in this process. Again, this all only unfolded 3 hours and roughly 15 minutes ago. So this is a story that is just breaking in the grand scheme of things fairly recently. It's going to take a while to get the answers that people want, and that, more importantly, that people deserve, especially those who are directly affected by this crash.
Yeah, I mean, you're seeing there are people there at the airport that were waiting for their wives and their loved ones to arrive, and they're still hoping that they will have a chance to see them. That is hard. That is hard to hear and see. But that is the reality, and that is the situation that we are all dealing with right now as we wait for word on whether or not the operation efforts have been successful in the sense of pulling anybody out and saving any lives. But
hey, so the camera we're seeing on the top left, that is, remind me, guys, in the control room where this shot is from, where they're at. Is this over in Alexandria? Okay, that's in Alexandria, because you just saw the one boat go by, and they brought in those temporary light standards to illuminate the area. I mean, look, it's midnight now. It's 12:15 in the morning. It's pitch black. The water can be murky. It is cold. It is frigid. Not just in the air, but even more so in the water, where we've been looking at those buoys and the readings. But still, at this hour, I imagine when we have that first briefing in 15 minutes, we're going to hear, we're going to get the bulk of the information, at least right now, that'll keep us going through the rest of the night. But as mentioned, I know for a while, I don't know for how much longer, but they did put, Metro put some extra trains out there on the Silver Line to bring people in who may have been diverted.
Do you know the timing on that, or did they say definitely?
Yeah.
Or
Randy Clark, the GM of Metro, just said they're working to help, but beyond that, nothing more.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see if we get more information.
I did see there that I know with Nana, she said some people were having difficulty getting in and out of the airport, but yeah. I've since seen that they've let people line up to catch cabs and some ride share. So that at least is some promising news for those who obviously will not be able to catch their flight or is stranded here. So it looks like they're figuring things out, and that's really what this whole process is tonight. Mm-hmm. And especially our coverage is that we are figuring it out with you.
Yep, exactly.
We are your eyes, your ears. Our reporters are there. They're giving us the information as it comes in. We're just about 14 minutes away from what is supposed to be our first briefing on this tragedy from almost 3 hours ago, right?
Yeah, it seems like that.
8:30 or so. And in the meantime,
so I'm going to
let's just
give me a moment here. There is a video out, and I will send it to our control room momentarily. Just the CEO of American Airlines has put out a statement, and we'll check in with him, or we'll check in with that as soon as I can get that over to our crews here. But once again, as mentioned, and just we'll reiterate what we know, because that's the most important thing here. It is 12:17 in the morning, about 3 hours and 17 minutes ago, an American airline flight on its way from Wichita, Kansas into Reagan National Airport collided at a low level upon landing, or as it was attempting to land, with a military helicopter. It was an Army helicopter on a training mission. There were 3 on board, 3 soldiers on board, 60 passengers on board that plane, 4 crew members on board, for a total of 67 people. Jim Broccoli is a former Air Force, he's an Air Force veteran, and he's also an attorney. He's joining us now here live on Fox 5. And Jim, you have been, you've been involved in investigations. You work with Mary Scavo, the former DOT Inspector General, on these sort of things. Let's talk about the investigation part of this. How quickly does that start, or do we have to wait for the search and rescue operation to complete?
Well, I think they're both coinciding at the same time. Obviously, the main focus is the search and rescue at this point, but they'll be gathering information. Both the NTSB and the military, both are mobilizing, and probably mobilized as soon as this happened, to get investigators on the scene and start collecting data and making sure, like with the FAA and air traffic control, audio, radar tapes, all those things are being preserved.
All right, Jim, and I bet by now you have, like the rest of us, have seen that video that shows the moment of impact, the moment that these 2 aircraft, the helicopter and the airliner, came together. What is your takeaway from that, from what you're able to see? Because we sit back here and we're still in shock. How can something like this happen? I know the details are very minimal right now, but from your experience and from what you've seen, what can you tell us?
Sure. So what I've heard, what I've gathered so far, and there are some of the air traffic control tapes out there and some of the communications. The aircraft, the American Eagle aircraft, was on short final, was at about 400 feet, just getting ready to land. And the helicopter was in communication, appears to have been in communication with the control tower. And the control tower told them, that there was traffic, a regional jet in front of them, and to confirm that they had the regional jet in sight. And apparently the helicopter reported that they did. When you look at that video, you see that there is an aircraft taking off at the same time. When you see that video that's shot from far away, again, you don't ever want to speculate this early in the accident, but if I was just to guess at something, the crew of the helicopter may have seen a different aircraft. And when they said that they had that aircraft in sight, they may have been talking about one that had been taking off rather than one that was landing.
All right.
I just wanted to ask one thing, just because, I guess when we check back.
Yeah, no, Jim's still here.
So my question is, because we have this military aircraft that is now part of this investigation, is that, we talk about going forward with the investigation, the black box and the recorders and the conversations with the air traffic controllers, but is that going to complicate things? Because I can imagine that the military also probably has their own set of aviation investigators as well.
They do. So the Army does have their investigation. They'll do actually, the Army will do 2 investigations. They do 2 different prongs. One is what they call a JAG investigation, which is more of a legal, to see if there's a fault to be assigned to any of the air crew. And then there's also a parallel safety investigation, which isn't looking necessarily to assign fault or to see if any violations were made, but to look at it holistically as to what was the causes of the accident, what could have been done to prevent it, and what can be done in the future to prevent this from happening again.
All right. Jim Broccolini, thank you so much for joining us tonight with your insight and expertise.
We've been getting various bits of information coming in so far tonight, but as we continue our coverage here, again, 12:22 in about 8 minutes, we're expected to hear a live briefing, and we got a list of those who are taking part. It'll be several dignitaries, several leaders, including Mayor Bowser, DC Fire and EMS Chief John Donnelly. I want to hear from him first and foremost because they were the ones who put the information out there. By the way, American Airlines, the CEO of American Airlines has put out a video statement. We have not seen this. Let's go to Kenneth real quick.
Yes, and while we're waiting to turn that video around, which I'm sure we will play it out for you guys, I do want to report out what he said in that video that was just posted moments ago on the American Airlines account. Again, this is Robert Isom, the CEO of American Airlines. He said he wanted to brief, obviously, on the serious accident. He said it was a difficult day. It is a difficult day for all of us here at American Airlines. Do we have this?
We can play it right now.
Okay, let's hear it.
All right, we're waiting for it. Here it is.
Hello, everyone. I'm Robert Isom, the CEO of American Airlines. I want to brief you on a serious accident involving American Eagle. The aircraft was operated by PSA Airlines, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of American Airlines. First and most important, I'd like to express our deep sorrow about these events. This is a difficult day for all of us at American Airlines. Our efforts now are focused entirely on the needs of our passengers, crew members, partners, first responders.
So here's what we're going to do. We're going to fix that audio issue there, and we'll listen to it again. But what I want to do is we're going to bring Kenneth back into this.
Sure.
Kenneth, got your mic up. Okay.
And we will get that audio fixed so we can hear that message from him. But again, the reporting from that message there from the CEO of American Airlines. Again, he was saying difficult day for all of us at American Airlines, and the company is now focused on those crew members and the passengers who were on that flight. He expressed deep sorrow. He also said there's a lot that he doesn't know at this point, but he wanted to share what he does know. And much of that information, guys, is what we've been reporting here on Fox 5, which is very limited information about where that plane was coming from Wichita to DCA, to Reagan National, the time that it was supposed to land there at National. And then what he knows so far is, again, the confirmation of the numbers that we've put out, 64 souls, 4 crew members, 60 passengers. He says that American Airlines has activated its care team, which is something that we've seen before when there's been an incident or an accident, when there's been a collision, any sort, anything involving aircraft, involving this company or really any airline. They have these go teams that are ready to respond to any scene, just like we see from the NTSB that has go teams as ready. And speaking of the NTSB and those federal investigators, the CEO also said they're cooperating with the NTSB and those federal teams. He said it will take time to learn exactly what happened tonight, but they are determined to find out the cause of this incident, and that he would put out more information as it becomes available. Again, we're working to turn that sound around right now, and apparently we've got it, guys. And so here is Robert Isom, the CEO of American Airlines.
Brief you on a serious accident that occurred involving an American Eagle aircraft. The aircraft was operated by PSA Airlines, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of American Airlines. First and most importantly, I'd like to express our deep sorrow about these events. This is a difficult day for all of us at American Airlines, and our efforts now are focused entirely on the needs of our passengers, crew members, partners, first responders, along with their families and loved ones. I know that there are many questions, and at this early stage, I'll not be able to answer all of them, but I do want to share the information I have at this time. American Eagle Flight 5342, operated by PSA Airlines, a CRJ-700 aircraft traveling from Wichita, Kansas to Washington Reagan National Airport, has been involved in an accident near Washington, D.C. It appears to have collided with a military aircraft on approach. Flight 5342 was under the command of 4 crew members and carried 60 passengers for a total of 64 people on board. We are actively working with local, state, and federal authorities on emergency response efforts, and the American Airlines care team has been activated to assist our passengers and their families. We're cooperating fully with the National Transportation Safety Board in its investigation and will continue to provide all the information we can. Our cooperation is without pause, and we want to learn everything we can about today's events. That work will take time, but anything we can do now, we're doing. And right now, that means focusing on taking care of all passengers and crew involved, as well as their families. Members of our GO team will be on their way to Washington, D.C., and I'll be heading there shortly as well. We know that many people will be concerned for the welfare of their loved ones, and we've set up a special helpline friends and family can call at 1-800-679-8215. That's 1-800-679-8215. If you believe you've had friends or family on board American Eagle Flight 5342. We understand and appreciate that people are eager for information. Please know that we'll continue to share accurate and timely information as soon as we can. But anything we must report must be accurate. We owe that to everyone involved. Our team of highly trained professionals will be working around the clock to support our passengers, crew, and their families however we can, and we'll update you as soon as we can. Thank you.
All right, that was Robert Isom. He is the CEO of American Airlines, and I realize a lot of the information that he provided there was things that you may have already heard from us. Regardless, we're expected to get more at this press conference coming up at 12:30, which in fact should be just about 90 seconds away, although these things definitely don't run on a firm clock.
Yeah, and meanwhile, we continue to hear from people who have witnessed this and are sharing their accounts. I know one guy chimed in and he said it sounded like a war zone crash, and that he saw immediately what happened afterwards. And just to kind of give you an idea, and another person saying that they thought they were hallucinating at one point. They thought that, you know, I see this every day. I see planes going to and fro on my drive back and forth, and had to do a double take and could not believe what they saw. And so I think that a lot of people are still in a state of shock. We heard Bob Barnard saying that a lot of people are just coming down to where he is at. I believe he's a little more southern, right? He's south of Gravelly Point, and they had to come see for themselves, and they can't believe
just
something like this would happen.
We should be getting more information during this press conference. Okay, go ahead and talk. Control room's talking to me. Go ahead. Okay. There's the press conference on the top right-hand corner of your screen. Okay. Yep. So let me ask the control room. Take that top right box, put it somewhere in here, and we'll continue to talk. And the second that we see people walk up to that podium, we will stop. That way you can focus on keeping the train on the rails here. But as we take a look at the latest from the Associated Press, and again, this is from an AP source. They say multiple people have been killed in this mid-air collision. We don't know how many. This is according to a person familiar with the matter, telling the AP, the person not authorized to publicly discuss details. So that is from the AP. We depend on the AP for a lot of the information coming down here. And again, because this operation has taken so long, you hope for the best, you plan for the worst, and unfortunately, that seems to be what we're going to hear at some point. This, what you're looking at, is inside one of the terminals at Reagan Airport. Everybody's getting into place. We will take that live as soon as it happens.
Yeah, and right now we are waiting to find out just exactly. If there was any type of rescues that were made. We're getting conflicting reports, but still at this point, no confirmation that anyone or anything has been pulled from the water. We do know that there are family members that are also at this airport, waiting patiently and waiting with a lot of hope to get good news or a good update. We heard from the CEO of American Airlines, who really couldn't give us too much detail, but said that their priority right now is to do everything and anything they can do for these passengers and for the crew and for their families. And so hopefully Sierra Fox is there, I believe, standing by. She'll be able to bring us the very latest. And of course, we're going to bring you that live information as it comes in. Meanwhile, we have made note that not a whole lot has changed as far as the level of response and
Well, while we're waiting to hear from this briefing, Abadi Ismail is joining us now. He's live on Zoom. Where you are, you live somewhere where you saw really this happen, and I just want to get your take as to what you saw earlier this evening. And by the way, where are you at, Abadi?
I am at Buzzard Points, where the point
right there.
Is, by James Creek Marina. I have an advantage view of the Potomac River, the Anacostia River, Reagan Airport, the military base. I have cinematic view, so I could see everything that is happening from the moment the crash happened, because I was in my, I was sitting and watching TV when the crash happened, but it was a bang, bang, very loud bang, bang, something I'm not familiar with, something you don't normally hear. So I turned into the window to take a look, and that's when I saw some smokes on the south side of the airport. So I still I wasn't able to comprehend everything. So a few minutes later, that's when I saw the DC Park, the Coast Guard, DC Police, Arlington Police, fire truck, everything and everybody, every resource within DC were heading toward the crash scene. That's when I took the video, somewhere around 8:50 p.m. And we want to make sure like something is really happening. The river, the Potomac, is frozen. We're talking about 39 as we speak today. So it's been frozen since the inauguration day. So that's another hassle that the U.S. Coast Guard have to maneuver through all this ice in order to get to the crash scene. The crash scene is about 2 miles from where I'm at. Based on what I see, I have friends that work at the DC Park. Based on their analysis on the site, this is not a search and rescue mission at this point, okay? It is, unfortunately, it's a recovery mission. I see only a handful of boats. I would say maybe like 10 boats at the very most. Most of them are on the east side of the river, which is the military base. And I believe that's where the crash, where the debris of the plane is. So this is what is happening right now. I see fire trucks on the Reagan Airport. So there's 2 actual sites of the crash. What you see on the screen right now is the Reagan Airport, but we need someone to take a look at the crash scene. I see helicopter with their flash and lights all over the Potomac, trying to find any possible life. When we talk about 39 degrees, we're talking about hypothermia. It's inevitable.
Right.
So this happened at 8:50 p.m. Now we are at 12:34. We're hitting almost 4 hours.
Yeah.
So this is really devastating.
Abadi, let me jump in for a second here, because I just want to point out, yes, when we talked about the air temperature, we talked about the water temperature. Clearly, these are dangerous, treacherous, life-threatening conditions out there. We do not have any confirmation yet. If it's been called a rescue mission, they have not officially called it a recovery operation, which again, we're hoping to hear some update momentarily.
Yeah, and from our vantage point, it actually looks like it's somewhat stayed the same. The presence, if anything, has only grown, but if I understand you clearly from what you've been able to see, because you have a different view, does it look like there are fewer boats in the water?
Fewer boats, 100%.
Yeah.
They are all stationed, all of them are stationed on the east side of the river. So and they've been stationed there for a while now. So that tells me that they found the debris of the plane. So what they're doing right now is they're either collecting, rescuing. You're right. They call it search and rescue, so we just keep it that way and hope for the best. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, they found some live people within this cold temperature waterway.
You would hope so.
Yeah, and where you see most of the boats, is that still on the Maryland side, like where the Joint Base, Anacostia Bowling side?
Correct. And yes, but let me take you actually outside just to take a look and see.
Yeah,
that'd be great if you can. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I realize, because we've seen from people who've been sending us video just from their vantage points, and when you look at it from afar, you get a sense of what kind of massive operation.
It is a massive operation, 100%. The fire trucks at Reagan Airport, we're talking about hundreds of them, but the amount of boats in the water, they're like a handful. That just tells me it's either the frozen water and inability for many of these boats to get to the sites. I'm not so sure, but it's not as, the scene in the water is not as much as the scene at the runway or at the Anacostia Bolling military base. So
Abadi, we thank you so much for your insight on this and just from your story. We have to go back to the airport right now. We're still awaiting that briefing, but Nana Sengubonsu is there. She has been at the airport since the breaking news came down, and she's here with an update now. Nana?
Hey, Jim. Yes, in moments we are expecting a briefing, an update from public safety officials. We know D.C. Fire is here. We know D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser is here as well as Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority, all expected to speak at this podium that is set here. A number of news outlets, media outlets here, all doing the same thing that we've been trying to do since we've been out here. The moment we got the call, get some answers and figure out what's taking place. How is that rescue going? Now, let's talk about the 60 passengers and then the 4 crew members. There's now a reunification center that's set up here in Terminal 1 for families. On our way from Terminal 2, because that's where we were at our last hit in the ticketing area, we had to walk a bit to Terminal 1 where the presser is taking place. On the way is where we saw the reunification center, obviously with tents set up. We couldn't see any family members, but that's where we're told airport leaders, the American Airlines leaders are kind of gathering families as they come in looking for their loved ones. Again, we don't really have any additional information. We just know that there is a reunification center set up here in Terminal 1. And when people come to the airport, they'll be led in that direction. But as we try and get more information that we can share with our viewers, again, we're here. We're waiting for this update. A lot of people just have many questions. We did see passengers inside the terminal at Terminal 2 asking for questions as well. And I even saw some saying, we're just going to follow you. So it's expected to start any moment from now. They told us 12:30. As you know, it's well after 12:30. Sometimes these things, it literally just takes time. They're still gathering. They're still putting together information before they get in front of us and deliver whatever it is they have. So we'll be here. It's expected to start soon. Again, you can see everyone is set up, ready to go. And we'll have whatever updates that come in for you. But again, very fluid situation. We've been moving around. We started at Gravelly. We worked our way to the ticketing, Terminal 2, and now we're here where this presser is getting ready to start. So hopefully we can have the information we've been asking, the numbers, the rescue. And one question that I have is when we were at Gravelly, we saw those boats go in and then they left, So why were those boats pulled out? Were they too far? Was the rescue taking place somewhere else? So many questions. We were hearing a lot of different unconfirmed reports. So there's so many questions. And Jim, I did not forget the question you asked me to figure out what time this airport will reopen, whether it's 5 a.m. that we're hearing or it's sometime on Friday. So we'll try and do the best that we can, but bear with us because we have a lot coming in right now.
Yeah, and hopefully, Nana, that's why we had the briefing where we'll get those answers out there. But thank you very much. We appreciate you, Nana, and we'll check back in with you in a little bit. Again, situations like this in times of breaking news and things are fluid, we were told that the briefing would be at 12:30. Obviously, they want to make sure that everybody is on the same page with something like this before they start addressing the media on this matter.
One official we did hear from, though, was Robert Ism, who is the American Airlines CEO, and he said in a video that he released that they would like to express their deep sorrow about the events of this crash. It's a difficult day for all of them, and their efforts are focused now on the needs of the passengers, their crew members, their partners, the first responders and families and loved ones. And then he offered the one phone number that they want those who believe that they have loved ones or friends perhaps on this flight to call. I know we were sharing that earlier. I'll go ahead and run through that again in case you're just joining us now. 1-800-679-8215, 800-679-8215. And again, I know we've been speaking to some eyewitnesses, but I think it's also really important to reiterate that at this point, we still don't have any confirmation as far as casualties, injuries, deaths.
We just have the numbers.
Yeah.
60 passengers, 4 crew. 3 soldiers, and I think those are numbers we're going to remember for a long while. That as mentioned, that Sikorsky helicopter was on a training mission, as they often do, and these are more or less the premier helicopters that the U.S. military, the U.S. Army often used to transport dignitaries around. There were no dignitaries on board this flight, according to reports out from the Army tonight. So at this hour, again, normally at 12:42 in the morning, you see maybe a couple stragglers, some concessionaires at Reagan Airport shutting down for the night, security, cleaning crews, and tonight, unfortunately, this has become really the epicenter of what we're going to hear as this breaking news continues.
It's terrible.
All right, we're continuing to look at these live images again at this hour. There's only so much we can say, guys. And let me. I know we were talking about this earlier. Is I want to bring back in Kenneth Moten to the conversation here, because Metro had diverted, or they were running extra Silverline service because there were reports that people might be diverted. You were running down some of the things from FlightAware, Kenneth, and it does look like there were some diversions.
There were diversions, and several into Dulles. There were flights out of Nashville, Denver, Minneapolis, Orlando that were originating from those cities that were headed for Reagan National. They all landed in the 9 p.m. hour. So if the crash happened around 8:30, just before 9 or so, before this flight was supposed to land at DCA, those other flights were en route, inbound, and they were diverted shortly after this mass casualty event was declared. And they were diverted to Dulles. Many of them diverted to Dulles. There were a couple that I saw, according to FlightAware.com, that were diverted to BWI that were coming from Atlanta and Houston. These were Southwest flights as well. So this is something that is typical. If there was some type of incident that would happen on the runway at Reagan, on that main runway or any of the runways there, that very busy Reagan National Airport, we would see flights diverted. These flights, several of them diverted, something that I feel like we haven't seen the amount of flights that we saw diverted after this incident, which is understandable. Right. This is something that we really have not seen before. And then obviously those who were on, the passengers who were on those flights had to get in touch with their family members or whoever was possibly going to pick them up at Reagan to say, now I'm at Dulles, now I'm at BWI. And obviously, once they learned, this is me speculating, but once I'm just putting myself in their shoes, learning what happened as soon as they landed, I'm pretty sure they were very thankful because at this moment, I mean, I'm pretty sure for those who have flown in and out of Reagan, you could say that could have been me. And so that's very sobering, a very sobering thought for those passengers who landed, who were on those diverted flights that were supposed to land at Reagan in the 9 o'clock hour. But many of them, again, landed safely at Dulles and BWI. And again, as Jim, as you and Angie have been mentioning tonight, obviously that Silverline service has been extended there. From Dulles, obviously people are making transportation or made transportation arrangements from BWI as well. And look, that was my count on FlightAware, but I do believe that there were other flights because it was a very busy night at Reagan National. I do believe there were other flights that were diverted as well. But I'm also seeing the cancellations that are also popping up. Typically the boards that we've seen where Nana showed us the board that had the message up there, typically those boards will tell you what the delays and the cancellations are. When we've gone and done snowstorms or anything that have been weather impacts there, we go to those boards to see what's happening and to see what kind of delays and cancellations are going to be. Right. And so I went on FlightAware.com.
Which we use often. I mean,
yes, we do.
It's a very useful tool, yeah.
And it's already showing a number of cancellations, obviously. And then, yes, we've been reporting that the airport is going to be close to 5 a.m. But Jim, Angie, this will be a ripple effect that I know that we're reporting that right now it's showing that the airport is going to be closed until 5 a.m. on Friday. But knowing Reagan and knowing what we even saw from the snowstorm from a few weeks ago that crippled Reagan National Airport and all of our 3 major airports, I do believe from my experience here that this is going to be a ripple effect that will impact that airport, maybe even possibly through the weekend as this investigation really is in the infancy stages because we're this rescue operation that is still underway there. As you look at that line of ambulances here, I've also, guys, been checking into to see, obviously, the hospitals in our area. We have a number of major hospitals with level 1 trauma centers that are ready for this. We know that when it comes to those first responders that you see there, when it comes to the hospital staff, they train for these types of incidents, hoping that they will never happen. But here we have them waiting on standby, waiting to serve, waiting to treat patients if and when they get them. Again, a very sobering scene that you see there with those first responders lined up.
We've been reading a lot of statements that are coming in, and Kenneth, and I want to read this because it's coming from the President of the United States on his Truth Social account. I'm just going to read this verbatim. This is from President Donald Trump. The airplane was on a perfect and routine line of approach to the airport. The helicopter was going straight at the airplane for an extended period of time. It's a clear night. The lights on the plane were blazing. Why didn't the helicopter go up or down or turn? Why didn't the control tower tell the helicopter what to do instead of asking if they saw the plane? This is a bad situation that looks like it should have been prevented. Not good. We're certainly, it is a terrible situation, no doubt, and we're hoping to get some answers, at least some preliminary answers, when we check in with the briefing coming up in just a little bit. In fact, as mentioned before, this is the second day on the job, but he was sworn in today. New Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy. We will be hearing from him early on in this briefing as well, whenever it gets underway. They're in position again. At times like these, they will give us a time, but it does take some coordination to get everybody out there and to speak. But we will be hearing from Fire Chief John Donnelly, senators from Kansas as well. It was Senator Jerry Moran earlier tonight, a Republican from Kansas, who had said earlier, kind of gave the first confirmation. We had heard that maybe it was Wichita. We had heard roughly around 9:15 where the flight was. It took time for us to confirm that, but the senator will be speaking there because these are their constituents as well.
That's right. And you mentioned Ted Cruz, too.
Ted Cruz as well, head of the Commerce Committee in the Senate, which oversees transportation.
Yeah, so they'll be getting their own separate briefing also in the morning. But yeah, you talk about Secretary Duffy, and sworn in today, and he was there right in the beginning. He said, I'm at FAA headquarters. So he's been there at ground zero, so to speak, since this started. So hopefully they'll be able to shed more light on this, and more importantly, be able to give some of these families some answers. I mean, that's what we're all waiting for. This is, unconfirmed reports. We are getting text messages. I mean, this is where we live. People were coming home. And now, we are starting to get messages that people knew certain people and certain families were there. And it's going to be a very, very difficult night and very difficult coming days for many of us. And we can only hope for the best. Yeah,
and I keep looking down. I mean, you probably see us looking down and, just getting the latest information out there and seeing if we're getting any new alerts that are coming through. But there's a lot of people watching this and a lot of people watching. Let's go back over to Shamari Stone. He's over at Gravely Point. He's ready to go. Shamari, let's go to you.
Well, first of all, the people that I speak to are actually, some of them are tourists who are staying in their hotels. You have people who are in hotels and live actually near Reagan National Airport. Many of them have been coming out here throughout the evening, taking photos. One woman was praying that I saw, concerned about the 64 people who were on that plane. A lot of folks are asking themselves, how can this happen? How did this happen? What led up to it? And of course, those are questions that will have to be answered in due time. Right now, people are concerned, obviously, about those people. And over here, you have Metro Transit police officers, U.S. Park Police, you have WMATA buses, and all of them are here as a command post by Gravely Point. This area is been closed. They're allowing us to be here to bring you this live television. There are people on the bus over there waiting for emergency responders who are cold to come and warm up there. You have these officers also on standby, and that cruiser you're seeing right there is moving, and people come in and out. And there's a lot of activity here at this area. And if you move over here, this is where they have the rescue mission. And right now we're going to go to the news conference for you all so we can get an update.
Yeah,
go right ahead.
Thank you, Shamari. We'll check back in with you. We're going to go back over to Reagan Airport. Sure. This is where that briefing is happening. You can see they've been given the go, and any moment now we are expecting to hear from several officials and the initial information. And I expect we will get a bit of a clearer picture as to what the toll is. All we've been told, all the Associated Press has been told, was it was multiple casualties. So they are stepping over to that podium right now. Let's listen in to Reagan Airport as we are set to hear what led up and what information we know early on about the crash of American Airlines Flight 5342 from Wichita to Washington Reagan National Airport. All right, there.
Okay. So we're hearing that they're not ready just yet. They've got, as you can imagine, they want to get it right too, right?
Well, right. That's the most important thing.
They don't want to step up there and rush into anything, and you got to respect that. So it looks like the cameras are turning around. Perhaps people are getting in place.
That was sort of the signal we had to start going there, but they're all checking to make sure the feeds are working, the microphones are working there.
And I can imagine, maybe they'll take some questions as.
I would imagine whatever questions they can answer. I don't know.
You've been listening to Fox 5 DC's coverage. We are going to be taking this press conference in full, as we are expecting to hear. This is the first update we're hearing from DC officials after this plane crash. We're going to listen to the full thing. We'll dip back into Fox 5 afterward.
I'm Muriel Bowser. I'm the mayor of Washington, D.C. I'm at Reagan National Airport. I am joined by United States Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, United States Senator Jim Moran, Senator Roger Marshall, Jack Potter, the CEO of the Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority. We are here to brief you on the very tragic events of this evening, where we know a passenger plane coming to the airport here collided with a military helicopter. Our fire department, DC Fire and EMS, supported by fire departments and police departments from across the Washington metropolitan region, are executing a rescue operation in the Potomac River. They are working diligently in very dark and cold conditions, cold water, to execute this rescue operation. We have had the opportunity to be briefed by American Airlines officials. I'm told that American Airlines leadership is on the way to Washington as well. And officials are in the airport talking to families now. We do have a 1-800 number where families should contact us, should contact American Airlines for more information, and we will be providing that information shortly. I am going to turn to a number of officials to provide as much information as we can this evening, and we expect to have more frequent briefings at daylight. So with that, I'm going to turn to Secretary Duffy.
Thank you, Mayor Bowser. I think for all of us, we want to extend our thoughts and prayers to those individuals who were impacted by the events tonight, their families. We know this is a very difficult time for all of them. I want to join the mayor and everyone here to extend our thank you to the first responders who, again, in very difficult situations and environments, are out there searching and attempting to rescue. Tonight, I spoke with President Trump and his team in the Situation Room. I had a conversation with Secretary Pete Hegseth as well, and then with the Kansas delegation and the mayor and others in leadership, as well as Governor Youngkin from Virginia and Governor Kelly from Kansas.
From the Department of Transportation and FAA's perspective, we are going to offer full support to those on the ground, to the mayor, but also to the NTSB, who is going to be conducting the investigation in this matter. We are going to provide all the support that's necessary. Mayor.
Thank you. So with that, I want to ask Chief John Johnley from DC Fire and EMS to provide an update.
Good evening, everyone. I'm John Donnelly, Chief of DC Fire and EMS. This evening at 8:48, an alert was sounded, initiating a large regional response to a report of an aircraft crash on approach to the airport. This response includes first the Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority's Fire Department, the District of Columbia Fire Department, the Metropolitan Police Department, and the U.S. Park Police to respond into the area and to sort that out. At 8:58, the first units arrived on the scene and found an aircraft in the water and began rescue operations. This incident has grown. There's currently about 300 responders working. We have boats from all throughout the region, police and fire boats. We have a mutual aid agreement in Washington, D.C., the National Capital Region Mutual Aid Agreement administered by the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments, and we're all operating under that. We're operating under a unified command. Everybody's together. So we also have requested state police helicopters from Maryland, and the Coast Guard helicopter is working. So this is a state and federal response as well. U.S. Coast Guard's got some boats in the water as well. So it's a highly complex operation. The conditions out there are extremely rough for the responders. It's cold. They're dealing with relatively windy conditions. Wind is hard out on the river. So they're out there working. We're doing everything we can to keep them safe. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to the mayor.
Thank you. In Chief Bonnet from MWA.
I'm Rick Bonnet, Fire Chief of MWA Fire and Rescue. Our units, as Chief Donnelly already alluded to, at 2048, we received an alert from the FAA tower of an aircraft incident involving a commercial aircraft and a helicopter. Our units immediately responded and deployed 3 boats and immediately called for mutual aid resources. Again, as Chief Donnelly said, it's an active operation that's going to last many hours as we continue to work through recovery efforts and rescue operations. This will be ongoing for quite a while. Our thoughts and prayers are with the families and our communities, and we appreciate all DC's support to our agency and our federal partners.
So with that, I wanted to turn to the senators who are from Kansas who wanted to say a few words. First, Senator Moran, and then Senator Marshall.
Mayor, thank you, and Mr. Secretary, thank you, and to our first responders, thank you very much for all that's taking place here. I'm Jerry Moran. I'm a United States Senator from Kansas, and I chair the subcommittee in Commerce Committee on Aviation. So we have really a serious and sad circumstance that we want to be here to be helpful, and we're praying that our responders are safe and the folks who are on that flight are recovered. The circumstance I would describe is that I know that flight. I've flown it many times myself. I lobbied American Airlines to begin having a direct nonstop flight service to DCA. That flight has been in existence about a year. And it is certainly true that in Kansas and in Wichita in particular, we're going to know people who are on this flight, know their family members, know somebody. So this is a very personal circumstance as well as an official response. And again, we will do everything we can to make certain that we're supportive of the rescue efforts, and we'll do everything we can to make certain that our subcommittee and Congress is engaged in what needs to take place following the outcome of this evening and this month's kind of investigation. I've talked to NTSB, I've talked to the White House, I've talked to the Department of Defense, and I've talked to the CEO of American Airlines, and there is all of us pulling together for the best outcome possible. I'm honored to be here with my colleague, Senator Marshall, as we try to make certain that we care for those certainly back in Kansas that were on that flight. But it's a reminder that there are people here in Washington, D.C., in this region, in Virginia and Maryland, and many places else that fly to and from Kansas. And so we're rooting and supporting all those, regardless of where you're from. And Mayor, I appreciate the gathering here for us to try to provide information to those in Kansas and across your city. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, thank you, Senator Moran and Mayor, Secretary. You know, when one person dies, it's a tragedy, but when many, many, many people die, it's an unbearable sorrow. It's a heartbreak beyond measure. And I know Senator Moran and I are here just to say we care. We wish that there was more we could do, but unfortunately there doesn't seem much at this time. I want the folks to back home to just know that we care, that we love them, and that this is a time when we'll have to join arms together and help each other out. We've been through things like this before, through tornadoes and floods and things, but it's really hard when you lose, you know, probably over 60 Kansans simultaneously. And I don't want to forget the pilots and the flight attendants, you know, are do their job, and the military personnel we lost. You know, all those lives are so valuable, and it is such a tragedy that we lost them. You know, I think often in times like this, I try to find a scripture that, you know, is apropos, and this is from the book of Psalms. It says, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." Certainly we're crushed in spirit tonight. We mourn with the families who lost loved ones, and we truly are joining them in prayer and wrapping our arms around them in love and compassion. Thanks for everybody for coming out tonight, and thank you for your thoughts and your prayers.
So certainly I speak for the people of Washington, 700,000 of us who are extremely sorry for the families who are experiencing loss tonight. And so we want you to know that we will continue to work with American Airlines to share information as frequently as possible and make sure that we're getting accurate information out to the public. But my sorrow for all of the people and crew on the plane and our military personnel on the helicopter is very deep. I do want to turn to Jack Potter, who is the CEO of our Airports Authority, responsible for Reagan National Airport and Dulles International Airport, to talk to you about how the airport responded and what's going to happen next.
Good evening. As was said, I'm Jack Potter, the President and CEO of the Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority. Thank you all for being here tonight and under these very, very grim circumstances. First of all, I want to let you know that we're providing support to all the families who are involved. American Airlines has established a phone number for them to reach out. It's been published, but let me repeat it. It's 1-800-679-8215. So families of folks that were on the plane are asked to contact them. We did have folks who were at the airport to pick up loved ones. And so American has set up a center in their in their lounge at the north end of the airport. And we've directed the families there. And there are folks there counselors there to work with the families. We did have aircraft that were in the air. They were diverted to Dulles Airport, some 19 aircraft. We had personnel, United and others had personnel. We want to thank WMATA for extending their hours on the Metro to make sure that those folks were accommodated. Right now, as was said earlier by the chief, we're in a rescue mode. We will continue in that rescue mode. I want to thank all of the mutual aid responders, all the counties, the district, folks from Maryland and Virginia. Everybody's on site doing the best they can and numerous boats out in the water right now. NTSB is on site. I want to thank all of the folks behind me, the Secretary, the Mayor, the 2 senators for all of their support. And we're going to continue to work through the night. I do want to make an announcement. People are, concerned about what's going to happen in the morning. Reagan National Airport will be closed until 11 o'clock. That's when the first flights will take off. But we're going to continue to do our best and work through this situation over the course of the night. And we hope to have more news as it develops. But for right now, it's a very difficult situation out there with the cold. It's very dark, but there are numerous boats out there. There are dive teams out there. So, again, we'll continue to work the situation, and I'll turn it back to the Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thanks for that update. And you've heard that in the National Capital Region, the district, of course, is Washington, D.C. is at the center, but we are a close region. We have heard from the governors of Maryland and Virginia, the mayor of the city of Baltimore, all who have sent us personnel to help in the rescue operations. Last thing I'll note is just to our local viewership, and just please let our first responders do their work. Try to let our vehicles get to scenes and through scenes. We don't want anybody else to get hurt because of moving vehicles, okay? So we will be able to take a few questions. There's not a lot that we can say. We won't be able to say anything about an investigation. As you know, once fire and EMS completes the rescue operation, then the investigation goes over to the National Transportation Safety Board. And I'm sure the Safety Board, NTSB, will provide information about when they will be briefing about an investigation. So we'll take a few. Yes?
Can you confirm that both aircraft are in the water, and perhaps Chief Donnelly can explain what's involved in conducting an operation like this?
Yes, both aircraft are in the water. The focus now is rescuing people, and that's what all of our personnel are focused on. And Chief, I think he's given a pretty good description, but if there's anything else you want to add, Chief?
I would just say that the boats are out doing searches. We have divers on both aircraft, and they're searching the aircraft at this point.
Right. Yes.
Have any survivors been found, and how many bodies have been recovered?
All we can confirm tonight is the number of people on each aircraft, 64 people on the American Airlines plane and 3 people on the military helicopter. When we can't provide any more information about recovery efforts.
But you're going to talk about lost loved ones. So how do you know that there might be people who have lost loved ones?
I didn't say I didn't know people that lost loved ones. I said we can't talk about any of the recovery efforts in specific tonight.
Secretary Duffy,
I'll call on who's next. Yes?
Thank you, Mayor Bowser. Will this affect operations at Dulles and BWI? Will the Potomac River traffic be closed to boats?
Yes. And so Jack has talked about, can you talk about Dulles? I'm not sure we can talk about the BWI, but we can talk about Dulles.
There is no impact at BWI or at Dulles. As I said earlier, our airport here, Ronald Reagan National Airport, will be closed until 11 o'clock. Obviously, that will be fluid. We'll learn more, but we wanted to advise passengers who might be coming to the airport in the morning that we will be closed until at least 11 o'clock.
Secretary Duffy. A question for Secretary Duffy. Yeah, 1 second. You're next.
Hi, Mayor. Thank you so much. So, just other than the current situations, like we know the water is extremely cold and it's very dark outside. Although Senator is saying that there are numerous boats in the water, but what's the biggest challenges for the rescue team? What best scenario we can expect in the coming few hours till morning?
So the challenges are access. The water that we're operating in is about 8 feet deep. There is wind, there is pieces of ice out there, so it's just dangerous and hard to work in. And because there's not a lot of lights, you're out there searching every square inch of space to see if you can find anybody. Divers are doing the same thing in the water. The water is dark, it is murky, and that is a very tough condition for them to dive in. The question about the river, we'll make that decision later. The Coast Guard's on scene, and I would expect that it's not a high use time in the river, and we should not expect to have commercial recreational traffic on the river tomorrow.
Okay, 3 questions. 1, 2, 3.
It's for Secretary Duffy. Have you been in touch with the air traffic controllers who were in the tower at the time of the crash?
I have not.
You have not. And second question, this is your first several hours in this position. What are your thoughts? What are you feeling right now?
My focus is on those who are impacted on this flight. And again, I've been the secretary for a little over a day, and the tragedy that we're going to deal with this recovery, I think is touching everyone's hearts, whether it's here in the greater DC area or in Kansas. And again, I think everyone here is thinking and praying for those who potentially have lost a loved one. And thank you.
Okay, your question?
Could any of you give us any sense about how an accident like this could have happened so close to the airport, right in the heart of DC? There have been reports that the DCA tower contacted the helicopter moments before the crash to ask if they had sight of the aircraft, that apparently helicopter reported that it did have sight of an aircraft. Is it possible that it had the wrong aircraft in sight? Do you have any sense of what went wrong in those final moments?
I know that the National Transportation Safety Board in its investigation will be able to search on all of those questions. We wouldn't be able to talk about that tonight. Yes.
2 points for Secretary Duffy. The first being, you were talking about when you were in the situation room with the president and the headset both being there. Can you tell us more about the president's initial reactions to this, as well as the headset that this was a military helicopter?
So I was not in the situation room. I did have a conversation with the situation room where the president was located, as well as with Secretary Hegseth. We're exchanging information. I would just note that not just the local team, but the federal team has performed very well in this crisis. I know the president is incredibly concerned about what's happened here today. I'm sure we'll continue to hear more from him, and I'll continue to consult with him and Secretary Hegseth.
When it comes to the resources that you would be able to provide on the federal level, do you feel like you're getting what you need?
Absolutely. The president has committed to this team and to the NTSB through the DOT that we will provide all resources necessary as we go through this recovery, but also the support from FAA and DOT as the NTSB investigates.
Mr. Secretary, do we know the condition of these aircraft? Are they whole? Are they split? Are they pieces?
Again, I don't think we can comment on that. Our focus is on getting the passengers and crew out of the water.
And just one more clarification, because earlier we got guidance that DCA was going to be shut down at least until Friday at 5 a.m. I just heard 11 a.m. 11 a.m. tomorrow. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, we can take a few more questions. A question here, and here.
Mayor Bowser, can you just confirm, has anybody been transported to the hospital?
I can't say anything about the rescue operation right now. Who was next? Yes.
Yeah, Chief Donnelly, can you speak a little bit more about the unified command who leads this phase of the rescue and recovery? At what point do you then change phases? And can you describe to us the scene as best you can when first responders first arrive?
So I happened to be listening to the radio this evening when the call came out. I listened to the responders come in, and the initial response, they were very professional, trying to locate this. This is, if you can imagine, the river is a large black spot at night with no lights on it, except for a few buoy lights. So they were out there looking. The boats pretty quickly were able to locate one of the aircraft and get there. So that's what's going on right now. Everybody's working on that. We will reevaluate where we are with the rescue. operation in the morning when we get a better sense of it, but we are still out there working, and we're going to continue that throughout the night.
Is there a sense that there are survivors?
We don't know yet, but we're working.
Is any part of the search happening over land?
No, we're all in the water.
Yes. Oh, you got a question. Somebody didn't get a question. Hold on. Yes.
I just wanted to ask, do you have an estimate yet on how long the recovery efforts will take?
So experiences like this we expect to continue our operations in the fire department for multiple days. And then I would expect the investigation goes longer than that.
Okay, you didn't get a question, and you were next, I think.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. My question is, do we have any plan to prevent future crash or future accidents? Do we have any like to reform the airport control to calm those people who are flying in the next few days? And also, how long the rescue is going to last? Are we going to stop rescue after tomorrow 11 a.m.? It's like divers team, because they are still in the golden hours now.
No. I mean, I think you just heard the chief said we're going to be out there as long as it takes. And we're obviously trying to get to people as soon as possible, but we are going to recover our fellow citizens. Yes.
This is for the chief and Secretary Duffy. How do you balance the search and rescue operation with preserving the scene for the investigation that's now underway?
So, from the fire department's point of view, we are always going to put people first. But I don't think I think our operations, because we have a unified command, we are all working together, and the NTSB is in contact with us, and we will work together to make sure that if there's crucial evidence that it's preserved. And that's something we do every day with our police department on crime scenes and things. So life comes first, and everything else is after that.
Okay, last question. Yeah.
Secretary Duffy, I just want to ask, I know it's early, but are there any immediate actions the FAA should take to prevent helicopters and commercial airplanes from getting too close to one another?
So obviously there'll be a review of what happened here tonight. And after the FAA studies what happened, we will take appropriate action if necessary to modify flight paths and permissions.
Do you have any more details about the helicopter mission with the Black Hawk? And Mayor Bowser, have you heard directly from President Trump?
I spoke with the president's national security advisor, and I have not talked to the president yet. And I do not know what the mission was. So let me close by saying again, thank you to the members of the press to help us get information out to the families. The American Airlines number is 800-679-8215. 800-679-8215. And I expect the airport will likely provide additional information in the morning. Thank you.
That's the first update we've gotten so far after this horrific situation in Washington, D.C. They're describing this as a rescue operation and saying that they are not commenting so far on recovery efforts. They say American Airlines leadership is en route to the scene. No casualty figures at this press conference. They did confirm that both aircraft are in the water. Just got this photo in from Fox News showing such. We heard the emergency responders. They said that the water is 8 feet deep. It's cold out there. They say there is ice. It's dark and murky. It's making it tough to dive in, they say. It's a large black spot, basically, with no lights on it, the river. One of the aircraft, they say, was spotted pretty quickly by emergency crews once they got on scene. They say none of their efforts tonight are on land, so everything is in the water. Again, they are still calling it, at that presser, a rescue mission. They say it's still active right now. The airport will reopen at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Mayor Muriel Bowser there saying the governors of Maryland and Virginia have sent personnel to help with the operation. She says she wants to let the first responders do their work. The NTSB will take the investigation over after the rescue efforts continue. And you heard them make a fine point to say families of people on those planes should contact 1-800-679-8215. 1-800-679-8215. Fox 5 DC continuing with their coverage.
They did not mention any fatalities, yet we have not heard of anybody actually surviving these conditions either. These responders are up against a rough situation. We're talking about freezing, icy waters. It is dark, as you can see. These divers are having to go in and see what they can find through the dark and murky Potomac River. And it's tough because what we saw, that crash that we saw at 9 p.m., all of that debris is also in the water right now that they have to also sift through. Dangerous situation. We have a number of crews out there monitoring this, trying to get close, trying to get us information. Bob Barnard, you are, tell us where you're at and what you're seeing right now.
Hey there, Sharon and Kenneth. We're at Dangerfield Island, which is on the Virginia side of the Potomac River, just south of Reagan National Airport. And we're going to pan our camera here in a moment, but we need to turn off our light because the authorities just told us that they're using night vision gear out here as they search the Potomac River for perhaps any survivors. And what you're looking at there, that's Reagan Airport itself there. And as we pan to the right, you'll see a large presence of first responders, flashing lights that probably about a half hour ago moved as you're looking from left to right, and they're basically at the far southern end of the airport property as it butts out into the Potomac River. And you see that very large response out there. We've also seen a number of boats. One just came to a dock here and exchanged crews. There's helicopters flying overhead, and you mentioned the conditions. I mean, it is cold. It's not as cold as it's been, but it's a lot colder than it was earlier today. Almost 60 degrees in the DC area, and parts of this river were frozen over just a few days ago. So the water is very cold. As you can see, it is very dark, and these conditions.
And Bob, actually, we're having a hard time hearing you, and I'm pretty sure I know the reason why. So if your camera can get back on you, I'm pretty sure we're going to be able to hear you better because of the way the audio is coming through. Because we want to hear your reporting out there because you are our eyes and ears on the ground. So Bob,
they can't hear me as well.
Yeah, Bob, can we get the camera back on you? And while that happens, I will say when you look at those conditions out there, Bob, this is when times like this, we lean on your expertise and the coverage that you know this area, you know it well.
Is the right channel on?
Yeah, there we go. We got you now, Bob. Please.
You hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Start again about what you're seeing, those conditions that those divers are now working with.
Cold night, not like it's been in the past week or so. Clearly not like it was today, a high of almost 60 degrees here in the D.C. area. But we'll see if ideally you can still hear me as we pan off back into the river here with our light off. We got to turn our light off here. They've asked us because some of the divers who are out here, you can't see them clearly, but they're out there. The same issue. They're saying the same issue. That hard time hearing me, guys. Can you hear me if I stand closer to here?
Yep, we can hear you now.
Do you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, all right, guys. So the deal is that you have dive teams in the water, and they've asked all the news crews here to turn off their lights when the cameras are facing out by the water, because they have divers using night vision looking in this water. And this is maybe a mile or so wide. We're on the Virginia side, looking across to, on the left there, that's the southern end of Reagan National Airport, and across the river is Joint Base Anacostia Bowling and DC Water. Their their Blue Plains facility, and you've got emergency first responders lining the southern part of the airport and the DC side of the Potomac River here, south of the airport, as they are looking for any possible survivors who are on the plane, on the helicopter. And I mean, there are docks here, so it's going to be hard to see, but in a moment here, you might see a boat that's kind of just kind of in front of us here. And you see, so there are crews even on this side of the river looking for possible survivors or remains, even though the helicopter and plane collided on the other side, kind of just over, where the land ends and the river starts on the DC side. But they had a helicopter flying over with its searchlight on the water in front of us here along Dangerfield Island, south of the airport, not long ago. So they are searching this whole area. And it's just, I mean, as you heard the authorities tell us, it's grueling work. And there's one of the boats that's coming here. They've been exchanging crews, and some of the first responders that we've seen over at the airport, if we pan back left here to the airport, they moved. They were, as you're looking now, they're kind of the far southern end of the airport property. They were, more on the west side and came east and have kind of, solidified over there. We know there is an area where we believe if they are finding remains, they are bringing them to that part of the airport property. We heard that earlier. We don't know that any have been recovered or anybody's been rescued, but any who will be, from the sense we're getting from our conversations with the authorities, that is likely they will be bringing them to the airport property, which, by the way, is sealed off, even though we do have a crew, at one of the terminals where that news conference just was. If you're passing the airport on GW Parkway, you cannot enter it. And as we understand, and now I want to pan to the right here, see this boat coming in. He's heading to the dock here. And when we were here earlier, they were exchanging crews, so we're not sure if that's what they're going to do again. But here's one of the boats that's been out here, and it had red and blue flashing lights, so that's not just a boat owner. That is one of the authorities out there. And so if you're driving by the airport, you'll notice there are police blocking the entrances, so you cannot enter the airport property. I drove all the way around over by Joint Base Anacostia Bowling and Blue Plains, and any entrance to where you would possibly get close to the river where the plane and helicopter sadly went down, you can't get in there. So basically, this is probably, for right now, besides Gravelly Point, if you're familiar with Gravelly Point, the best vantage point to see the work that is being done by hundreds, no doubt hundreds of first responders on the water, on the shore, in the air, as they ideally recover survivors. But as we've been talking about, the conditions are not like they were several days ago, but they are brutal, and it's just pretty awful. And when I was here about 2 hours ago, there were dozens of people just from the community who wanted to come get close. And I mentioned some were praying, and others just, when they were leaving, had their heads down. But they came here because they were interested in seeing what was going on. There aren't many just bystanders out here now. Just us as reporters, and you see, the boats on the water, and taking advantage of the docks here to stop exchange crews and head back out again, guys.
Bob, there's a lot that makes this search and rescue very difficult, and obviously the timing of this tragic and horrible incident definitely is making it even tougher for those first responders. 300 first responders, according to the officials that we just heard from, who are out there searching through 8 feet of water. But again, we want to reiterate, there are divers in both aircraft, inside the helicopter and inside the American Airlines Flight 5342. Those divers are searching those aircraft. They were in the water at this hour, and Sharon, they need some light.
Yeah, they do. And the Potomac River, on average, is about 24 feet deep. Yeah. So there's a wide area to search. dark conditions. Let's go over to Mike Thomas, because Mike, they could use some light. Sadly, it's 1:30 in the morning right now. Light is 5 hours away?
Yeah, well, light's probably, and what we call civil twilight, which is where it starts to get bright enough that you can actually see what you're doing outside, right? That doesn't occur until 6:47. So unfortunately, they still have several more hours where they're working in darkness. Winds at this hour, not as bad, but occasionally we do still get some gusts up over 20, and that'll make the water choppy. That'll reduce visibility out there. Again, Sharon mentioned 24 feet on average, Potomac River. That's from the mouth up to the north as it kind of runs up the Virginia-Maryland border. Right around that Reagan National Airport area, the average is about what that gentleman from earlier spoke about 8 feet near Reagan National Airport. There is a shipping channel I'll show you in a minute where it is a little bit deeper, though it doesn't sound like they're searching in that particular channel. It sounds like it's in the shallower parts of the river there. 5-mile-per-hour winds at D.C. right now. That's at least a little bit beneficial. And if you notice the picture to the north and west, there is still some ice on the river. Now, it's mostly in the shallows closer to the shoreline, but Bob mentioned we had a 60-degree day today, 64 at Reagan National this afternoon. As that ice starts to thaw and melt, water does not change its temperature nearly as fast. We could have 60 for a couple more days, and water temperatures would struggle to make it much past 40 degrees for a few days yet. It takes a while for the water to respond to the air temperatures. So unfortunately, water temperatures tonight, as you'll see in a moment, still down in the 30s. 45 degrees, that's the air temperature. So one good spot about the warm day is that the temperatures as of this moment, certainly not as cold as, say, had this happened this time last week when it would be absolutely awful. Those are the water temperatures in the bay. Satellite can still pick those up, about 34, 35, and we're seeing that echoed in the Potomac River as well. There is a buoy not too far, kind of just to the north of Reagan National here, that is reading a temperature just updated about 20 minutes ago with 35.8 degrees. So the unfortunate reality is that according to the U.S. Search and Rescue Task Force website, in water temperatures like this, survivability is about 30 to 60 minutes. And of course, knowing that this crash happened hours ago, it really is going to be tough. I mean, we can always hope, right? And at this point, that's sort of what we have to do here. Reagan National Airport, again, just to the south. We have been showing this camera of the recording of the crash off the EarthCam located just off to the north and to the west of where the Lincoln Memorial was. It was tracking that flight as it came inbound to DCA, which was about to run or trying to land there on runway 33. That is this sort of diagonal runway that runs from northwest to southeast. Winds were coming out of the northwest, and of course pilots will tell you they always like to land against the wind. It helps stabilize the aircraft as it comes in. Here's the river depth I wanted to mention. On the extreme eastern side, away from the airport, as far as away from the airport as you can do it, they have the shipping lane, which is where those big container ships will go on by. They keep it as far away from the airport intentionally, right? They don't want the planes flying and hitting any of the taller ships there. So 30 to 36 feet of depth there on the eastern flank. It's a pretty narrow shipping lane, though. They really stay confined to that eastern shore. It's in this area where they're likely doing most of the searching here. So kind of central and western portions of the river there. That's where the average depth, 5 to 15 feet. And of course, we had the official earlier tell us that most of the rescue efforts are happening in about 8 feet of water at this time. So that's what's going on right around Reagan National weather-wise. That's where Bob was, right there at Dangerfield Island, looking north right at Reagan National Airport. And again, most of the crews he's looking at just off to the north and northeast of his position, guys. We'll send it back over to you. Again, sunrise and when we should start to see some daylight and hopefully get a little bit more answers. That comes up 6:47 for twilight and then 7:15 official sunrise here in Washington.
Mike, before you leave us, I do want to ask you this one quick question because we do have a new image from the crash scene that we want to show people. But this is a very important question: is for the rescuers tomorrow morning, the temps. What are they going to see at 7 a.m. in the morning, and how will conditions change? Obviously, the light will help, but as far as the weather and the forecast for tomorrow morning,
So winds not going to be nearly as rough tomorrow morning as they were today when we had those wind advisories. No advisories tomorrow. And temperatures still in the 40s, and they probably won't drop too much farther. But we're not expecting to get below freezing here in D.C. tonight. Maybe upper 30s, but certainly not going to be the coldest night we've had this week. So a little bit of a benefit there. Still, though, we're talking about air temperatures in the 30s. They're suffering through pretty tough conditions out there.
All right, Mike, thank you. Of course, we know Reagan National Airport also shutting down operations till tomorrow at 11 a.m., at least that's the latest. We want to show you, this is obviously very disturbing for all of us, but this is the first image we are getting from Getty Images of this plane crash. Wow.
You see the wreckage there.
I mean, they say when this collision happened, this midair collision happened between this regional jet coming from Wichita, Kansas to DCA and this U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter. Sadly, many people had reported that they saw this plane kind of go into different pieces throughout the waters there. And you can see that damage to that plane. It's just a stunning sight.
And we will see more in the light of day. But again, this is the first image, an up-close image for us to take a look at that wreckage in the Potomac. You see the airport, Reagan National, in the background. And you see a boat that is right there. Again, first responders say that divers are in the water. They are, we believe they are in the aircraft, both of them. We do not see the helicopter, but from that image that you're seeing right there, we can see the wing, and we can see the wreckage there, and that is something else to see. We knew that we possibly see something like that, but to actually lay eyes on it, that is tough to see.
Yeah, and no doubt. I mean, listen, our hearts, our thoughts right now are with the families, both in Wichita, Kansas, and the ones that are here. We are told some families are here, some are trying to desperately get here, some are depending on us and DC officials to get them the information that they need. Again, Mayor Bowser, as of just a few moments ago, said this is a rescue operation. We have not heard of anyone surviving this crash yet. We are hoping that we do get that news. But again, that first image from Getty Images of this plane crash, something we haven't seen in this region for decades. We saw earlier, kind of in the distance, the plane crash where you can kind of see that fireball in the sky. But this certainly gives us a much more sobering image.
And it also shows us what those first responders are dealing with. That is a little bit of light that we're seeing there to show us that image, but they are trying to light up that area as much as possible. But as Chief Donnelly said from Fire and EMS, they're dealing with a black spot here that is the Potomac River at this hour. That they don't have a lot of lights that will be able to show, exactly, right up on top of, whatever they're trying to search or whatever like that. And the lighting is obviously an issue. Let's get to Josh Rosenthal as we've got our reporters spread out over that area right now. Josh, what are you seeing?
Oh, Kenneth and Shren, I'm standing at the intersection of S and Half Streets Southwest. To give you an idea of where that is, you've got Nats Park to my right, behind me, Frederick Douglass Memorial Bridge, and down this way is what we believe to be a command center of sorts, certainly a staging area. I say that for a few reasons. There is water access down there. By the way, in relation to the airport, we're across the Potomac and up the Anacostia just a little bit. We've seen a tremendous amount of emergency personnel coming and going from this point for the past couple hours that we've been standing out here now. We saw what we believe to be a DC police helicopter land down there not too long ago. We know there is a helipad down there. Also, as you see here, this is fire equipment and personnel trying to make their way down there. We've seen quite a few ambulances go down there, also fire trucks, police cruisers, and police SUVs. What exactly they're doing down there, all this emergency personnel, what exactly they're preparing to do, it's tough to know from our vantage point. However, I can tell you it is a tremendous amount of personnel that's just down there. The street, it's a dead end, only about a block down in that direction. Of course, we can't go down there. We're staying behind the police tape, but there is a lot of activity here. As far as this general area goes, obviously it's pretty quiet. It's in the wee hours of the morning here. However, many of these streets are shut down to traffic. The cars that are coming through are either emergency personnel, or occasionally you see people who live here come by. For instance, this car might be someone along those lines. And we've seen quite a few people approach police, oftentimes trying to get into their buildings or their parking garages, and we're seeing them being turned away and told to park on the street, do whatever they have to do. But this area, despite being, a decent clip from the airport, again, across the Potomac and up the Anacostia a little bit, it is pretty much being shut down to people who are coming and going. But for hours now, we've been seeing a lot of this equipment, heavy equipment being staged, coming in, parking. Clearly, this is a major activity site for some of these emergency responders who are working extremely hard this morning and taking part in this rescue mission. Kenneth and Shrimp.
It is a massive operation, Josh Rosenthal. Thank you. And we know that, according to those officials who gave that update moments ago, that they are operating under unified command. The mutual aid agreement is underway right now, where it is all hands on deck here in the DMV. Federal, state, local authorities, first responders are all out there helping. A number of boats in the water, along with 300 responders.
Yeah, and this